He has one chance to change his life. An interview that could save him and his young daughter from poverty. But on a deserted road this morning, Adam Walker stopped to help a stranger in a stalled car. He lost his job. He lost everything. But he didn't know that this woman would change his life forever. Follow the story to the end and comment with the city you're watching so I know how far this story goes. The alarm clock screamed at 5:47 a.m. Adam Walker's hand shot out from beneath the thin blanket, slamming down on the plastic device with more force than necessary. The sound died, but the silence that followed was somehow worse. He lay there for a moment, staring at the water-stained ceiling of his cramped one-bedroom apartment, listening to the radiator clank and wheeze like a dying animal. Today was the day. He repeated that thought in his head, trying to make it feel real. Today was the day everything could change. Today was the day he might finally climb out of the hole that had swallowed his life whole over the past 2 years. The interview was scheduled for 9 o'clock a.m. sharp at Henderson & Associates Engineering, one of the most respected structural engineering firms in the city. They had called him back. Out of 300 applicants, they had called him back. The recruiter's voice had been warm on the phone, almost encouraging. "We were very impressed with your portfolio, Mr. Walker. Your work on the Riverside Bridge project was particularly noteworthy." Adam closed his eyes and allowed himself, just for a moment, to imagine what it would feel like to have a real salary again. A real job. Health insurance. A savings account that wasn't perpetually empty. Maybe even a 2-bedroom apartment so Maddie could finally have her own room instead of sleeping in the corner of his, separated only by a curtain he'd hung from the ceiling. Maddie. The thought of his daughter pulled him upright. He swung his legs over the edge of the mattress, no bed frame, just a mattress on the floor, and rubbed his face with both hands. Through the thin wall, he could hear Mrs. Patterson's television already blaring some morning talk show. The woman was 73 and nearly deaf, but she was also the only neighbor who ever smiled at Maddie in the hallway, so Adam never complained. He stood, bones creaking, muscles aching from yesterday's 12-hour shift at the warehouse. At 34, he shouldn't feel this old. But poverty had a way of aging a man faster than time ever could. The bathroom was barely big enough to turn around in. Adam splashed cold water on his face. The hot water heater had been broken for 2 weeks, and the landlord kept forgetting to fix it, and stared at his reflection in the cracked mirror. Dark circles under his eyes, a jaw that needed shaving, hair that was starting to show threads of gray at the temples, even though he was still years away from 40. "You've got this," he whispered to his reflection. "You've prepared. You know your stuff. You've got this." The words felt hollow, but he said them anyway. He had laid out his only suit the night before, a charcoal gray number he'd bought at a thrift store 6 months ago for $12. It was slightly too big in the shoulders and slightly too short in the sleeves, but it was clean and pressed, and it would have to do. His resume was printed on crisp white paper, tucked safely in a folder. He had practiced his answers to common interview questions so many times that Maddie had started reciting them back to him during dinner. "Daddy, what's your greatest weakness?" she would ask in a mock serious voice, her 6-year-old face scrunched up in concentration. "I sometimes care too much about doing things perfectly," he would reply, and she would nod solemnly, as if she were the hiring manager herself. God, he loved that kid. Adam finished getting ready and padded quietly to the corner of the room where Maddie slept. The curtain, a faded blue sheet with cartoon dolphins on it, was pulled closed. He drew it back gently and looked down at his daughter. She was curled up in a ball, clutching her stuffed rabbit Mr. Whiskers to her chest. Her brown hair was a tangled mess across the pillow. Her breathing was slow and peaceful, her small chest rising and falling in the rhythm of deep sleep. She looked so much like her mother. The thought hit Adam like a punch to the gut, the way it always did. Sarah had died when Maddie was only 2, a drunk driver running a red light, a collision that had stolen everything from them in the span of a heartbeat. One moment, Adam had been a happy husband with a beautiful wife and a toddler daughter, working as a junior engineer at a promising firm. The next moment, he was a widower, drowning in medical bills and funeral costs, too shattered to function, watching his career crumble as his grief consumed him. He had never fully recovered, but he had survived. For Maddie, he had survived. Adam leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to his daughter's forehead. She stirred slightly, but didn't wake. "I'm going to make things better, baby girl," he whispered. "I promise." He slipped out of the apartment at 6:45 a.m., giving himself more than 2 hours to make a drive that should take only 45 minutes. He wasn't taking any chances. Not today. The morning air was crisp and cold, carrying the scent of rain that hadn't yet fallen. Adam's car, a 15-year-old Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on the odometer and a check engine light that had been glowing steadily for the past 3 months, sat in the parking lot like a faithful old soldier, battle-scarred but still standing. He slid behind the wheel and turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then grudgingly roared to life. Adam patted the dashboard. "Come on, old girl, just get me through today. That's all I'm asking." The drive started smoothly enough. Adam had mapped out his route the night before, checking traffic patterns and identifying alternate paths in case of congestion. The main highway was the most direct route, but it was also unpredictable. An accident at the wrong time could turn a 45-minute drive into a 2-hour nightmare. So Adam had a backup plan. Old Mill Road, a winding back route that cut through the rural outskirts of the city. It added about 15 minutes to the trip, but it was almost always empty. No traffic lights, no congestion, just open road. At 7:15 a.m., Adam's phone buzzed with a traffic alert. Major accident on Highway 12. All lanes blocked. Estimated delay, 90 minutes. His stomach dropped. 90 minutes. That would make him catastrophically late. He would miss the interview entirely. Without hesitation, Adam took the next exit and headed for Old Mill Road. The transition from highway to back road was like stepping into another world. The noise of the city faded away, replaced by the quiet hum of the engine and the whisper of wind through bare winter trees. The road curved and dipped through rolling hills, past abandoned farmhouses and fields lying fallow until spring. Adam checked the time. 7:32 a.m. He was making good progress. At this rate, he would arrive at Henderson & Associates with at least 20 minutes to spare. Enough time to find parking, calm his nerves, and walk in looking composed and professional. For the first time all morning, he allowed himself to relax slightly. His grip on the steering wheel loosened. His shoulders dropped from their position up near his ears. He even turned on the radio, letting the soft sounds of a jazz station fill the car. Maybe this was going to work out after all. Maybe today really was the day everything changed. And then he saw her. Bussin'. She was standing beside a dark blue sedan that had pulled off to the side of the road, hazard lights blinking weakly. The hood was up, and steam, or was it smoke, was rising from the engine in lazy curls. She was pacing back and forth, phone pressed to her ear, her free hand gesturing frantically. Even from a distance, Adam could see the panic in her body language. The way she kept looking up and down the empty road. The way her shoulders were hunched against the cold. She was wearing a blazer, professional attire, not nearly warm enough for a morning like this. He slowed the car as he approached, his mind racing through calculations. The time. The interview. The job that could save his family. It was 7:38 a.m. He had roughly 80 minutes until his interview. If he stopped, even for just a few minutes. "Keep driving," a voice in his head urged. "She's a grown woman. She has a phone. She can call for help. This is not your problem. You cannot afford to be late. Maddie is counting on you." Adam's foot hovered over the gas pedal. The woman looked up as his car approached. Their eyes met through the windshield. And in that moment, Adam saw something that made his heart constrict. Raw, undisguised fear. The kind of fear that came from being alone and vulnerable in a place where no one could hear you scream. She was young, maybe late 20s, professional looking, and absolutely terrified. Adam thought about Maddie. He thought about Sarah. He thought about what he would want someone to do if his daughter or his wife were stranded on a lonely road with no help in sight. He pulled over. Bumped. The gravel crunched under his tires as Adam eased his car to a stop about 20 feet behind the disabled sedan. He killed the engine and stepped out, raising his hand in a non-threatening wave as the woman took an instinctive step backward. "Hey," he called out, keeping his voice calm and friendly. "Car trouble?" The woman's eyes were wide, scanning him up and down as if assessing whether he was a threat. Her phone was still pressed to her ear, though Adam could see now that the screen was dark. Either the call had ended, or she was pretending to be on a call as a safety measure. Yes, she stammered. The engine it made this horrible sound, and then everything died. I've been trying to call a tow truck, but I can't get any signal out here. Adam nodded, pulling his own phone from his pocket. 1 bar. Barely enough to send a text, let alone make a call. Yeah, the service out here is pretty terrible, he said. Dead zone for about 5 miles in either direction. Do you mind if I take a look at the engine? I'm not a mechanic, but I know my way around a car. The woman hesitated. Adam could see the war playing out on her face, the desperation to accept help versus the fear of accepting help from a stranger. He understood. He really did. I'm Adam Sutz, he said, taking a small step back to give her more space. Adam Walker. I'm on my way to a job interview, actually. Just saw you here and thought I should stop. Make sure you're okay. Something in his words seemed to ease her tension slightly. Maybe it was the mention of the job interview, a detail too mundane and specific to be a lie. Maybe it was just the genuine concern in his voice. Sophie, she said finally. Sophie Brennan. And yes, please, if you could take a look, I would really appreciate it. I have absolutely no idea what happened. Adam walked toward the front of the car, careful to keep his movement slow and visible. The hood was already propped open, revealing an engine that was clearly in distress. Coolant was pooling on the ground beneath the car. The smell of burnt rubber hung in the air. Ah, Adam said, leaning in for a closer look. Yeah, I see the problem. Your radiator hose blew. See this? He pointed to a split in the rubber tubing. Once that goes, you lose all your coolant, and the engine overheats fast. That's what caused the steam and the shutdown. Sophie stepped closer, peering at where he was pointing. Is that something you can fix? Adam shook his head. Not without replacement parts and proper tools. This car isn't going anywhere until you get it towed to a shop. He paused, checking his watch reflexively. 7:46 a.m. 74 minutes until his interview. Look, I can give you a ride to the nearest town. There's a gas station about 8 miles up the road. They should have a phone you can use to call for a tow, and better cell service. Sophie's face flooded with relief so profound that it almost made Adam's heart break. You would do that? Really? I don't want to make you late for your interview. It's fine, Adam heard himself saying, even though it wasn't fine, even though every minute was precious, even though his entire future was hanging by a thread. I've got time. He didn't, but he couldn't bring himself to leave her here alone. They drove in silence for the first few minutes, the weight of the situation settling over both of them. Sophie sat in the passenger seat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, still visibly shaken. Adam kept his eyes on the road, his mind split between the woman beside him and the clock on the dashboard that seemed to be moving faster than it should. Thank you, Sophie said quietly, breaking the silence. Really? I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stopped. I've been out here for almost 40 minutes. 5 cars passed me, and not one of them even slowed down. Adam felt a flicker of anger on her behalf. People are scared these days. They see someone in trouble and they think about all the horror stories they've heard. They convince themselves it's not their problem. But you stopped. Yeah, well, Adam shrugged, uncomfortable with being cast as any kind of hero. I have a daughter, 6 years old. I kept thinking about what I would want someone to do if she were the one stranded out here someday. Seemed like the right thing to do. Sophie turned to look at him, really look at him, for the first time since they'd gotten in the car. What's her name? Your daughter? Maddie, short for Madison. That's a beautiful name. Sophie paused. And this interview you're going to, is it for something good? Adam laughed, but there was no humor in it. Something good? It's for everything. I've been out of work in my field for almost 2 years. I mean, I work, I do whatever I can to pay the bills, but it's not what I'm trained for, not what I'm good at. This interview is at an engineering firm, Henderson and Associates. They called me back for a second round. That's amazing, Sophie said, genuine enthusiasm in her voice. They must have been really impressed with you. I don't know about that. I just know that if I get this job, I can finally give Maddie a real life. A stable life, not this. Not this constant struggle just to survive. He hadn't meant to say so much. He didn't usually talk about his situation with anyone, let alone complete strangers. But there was something about Sophie, something about the way she listened, the way she asked questions, that made the words pour out of him before he could stop them. "What happened?" Sophie asked gently. "If you don't mind me asking, how did you end up struggling?" Adam was quiet for a long moment. The road stretched out ahead of them, empty and gray. "My wife died," he said finally. "A little over 4 years ago. Drunk driver ran a red light. She was on her way home from the grocery store. Maddie was 2 years old." "Oh God," Sophie breathed. "Adam, I'm so sorry." After that, I just fell apart. I couldn't function, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus. I was working at a good firm at the time, had a promising career ahead of me, but I couldn't do the job anymore. I kept making mistakes, missing deadlines. Eventually, they let me go. And by that point, I was so deep in debt from the medical bills and the funeral and just everything that I couldn't climb out. He paused, swallowing hard against the lump that had formed in his throat. "For the past 2 years, I've been doing odd jobs. Construction, warehouse work, whatever I can find. It pays the bills, barely. But it's not a life. Not the life I want for Maddie. She deserves so much more than what I've been able to give her." Sophie was silent for a long moment. When Adam glanced over, he saw that her eyes were glistening with unshed tears. "I had no idea," she said quietly. "When I saw you pull over, I thought, I don't know what I thought, but I never imagined that you were carrying so much on your shoulders." Adam shrugged, trying to lighten the mood. "Everyone's carrying something, right? Some people are just better at hiding it than others." The gas station appeared around the next bend, a small, weathered building with 2 ancient pumps out front and a flickering neon sign that read Earl's Service and Gas. Adam pulled into the lot and killed the engine. "Here we are," he said. "They should have a phone inside, and the cell service should be better here. We're on the edge of the dead zone now." Sophie didn't move right away. She sat there looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Adam Walker," she said slowly, as if committing his name to memory. "I'm not going to forget this. What you did for me today, most people wouldn't have done it. Most people would have driven right past." "You would have been fine eventually," Adam said, uncomfortable with her gratitude. "Someone would have stopped. Maybe. Or maybe I would have been stuck there for hours. Or worse." She shook her head. "You don't know what this means to me. You really don't." She reached out and touched his arm briefly, just a moment of contact, and then she was opening the door and stepping out into the cold morning air. "Good luck with your interview," she called back. "I have a feeling you're going to do great." Adam smiled, though his stomach was already knotting with anxiety as he looked at the clock. 8:14 a.m. 46 minutes. The gas station was at least 30 minutes from Henderson and Associates, maybe more. He would be cutting it close, dangerously close. "Thanks," he said. "I hope I see you again someday, under better circumstances." Sophie smiled back, a warm, genuine smile that lit up her entire face. "Something tells me you will." And then she was gone, walking toward the gas station, and Adam was pulling out of the parking lot, pressing the accelerator harder than he should, racing against time. The drive became a blur of speed limits pushed and traffic laws bent. Adam's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel, his heart pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird. The clock on the dashboard ticked forward with merciless precision. 8:21 a.m., 8:35 a.m., 8:47 a.m. He hit every red light, every slow driver, every minor obstacle that the universe could throw in his path. It was as if fate itself was conspiring against him, punishing him for his act of kindness. At 8:52 a.m., he finally pulled into the parking garage of the building where Henderson and Associates was located. He sprinted for the elevator, stabbed the button for the 14th floor, and stood there watching the numbers climb with agonizing slowness. 8:54 a.m., 8:56 a.m., 8:58 a.m. The elevator doors opened and Adam burst out into the reception area of Henderson and Associates, breathless and sweating, his carefully pressed suit now wrinkled from the drive. The receptionist, a severe-looking woman with steel gray hair, looked up at him with an expression of mild distaste. "May I help you?" "Adam Walker," he gasped. "I have an interview, 9 o'clock, with Mr. Henderson." The woman consulted her computer, then looked back at him with raised eyebrows. "Mr. Walker, yes, you were scheduled for 9 o'clock. She glanced pointedly at the clock on the wall. "It's now 8:59. Mr. Henderson has a very tight schedule today. He asked me to inform you that if you were not here by 9 o'clock sharp, the interview would be canceled." "I'm here," Adam said, perhaps too loudly. "I'm here before 9. "You're here now," the receptionist agreed, her tone frosty. "But Mr. Henderson likes his candidates to arrive at least 15 minutes early. It shows respect for his time, commitment, reliability." Each word was a small dagger. "I'll let him know you've arrived, but I should warn you, he's already expressed concerns." She picked up the phone and murmured something into it while Adam stood there, heart sinking, hope draining away like water through a cracked cup. A moment later, a door opened and a man emerged, tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Adam's monthly rent. This was Charles Henderson, the founder and senior partner of the firm. Adam had researched him extensively. 57 years old, Harvard-educated, a legend in the engineering world. And right now he was looking at Adam with undisguised disappointment. "Mr. Walker," Henderson said, his voice cool and measured, "I appreciate you making it. Eventually." "Mr. Henderson, I'm so sorry. There was an accident on the highway, and then I took a back road. And there was a woman stranded with a broken-down car, and I couldn't just leave her there." Henderson held up a hand, cutting him off. "Mr. Walker, I'm going to stop you right there. I've heard a lot of excuses over the years, some creative, some absurd. What I've never heard is an excuse that changed my opinion of a candidate who couldn't bother to show up on time." "It's not an excuse, sir. It's what happened. I really did—" "Whether it happened or not is irrelevant," Henderson interrupted. "What matters is the result. And the result is that you arrived at the last possible second, disheveled, sweating, making excuses. Is that the kind of engineer I want representing my firm? Is that the kind of employee I can count on when deadlines are tight and clients are demanding?" Adam opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He stood there feeling the weight of the moment crushing down on him. Everything he had worked for, everything he had hoped for, slipping away. "I'll give you 5 minutes," Henderson said finally, "out of courtesy for the time we've already invested in your candidacy. 5 minutes to convince me why I should overlook this inauspicious beginning." 5 minutes. It wasn't enough. Adam knew it wasn't enough, but he sat down in the chair Henderson indicated, pulled out his portfolio, and tried anyway. Thus, he talked about his experience, his qualifications, his passion for structural engineering. He talked about the Riverside Bridge project, his greatest achievement, the work that had first put him on the map before his world collapsed. He talked about his vision for the future, his eagerness to contribute, his willingness to work harder than anyone else. Henderson listened with the expression of a man who had already made up his mind. At the end of the 5 minutes, the senior partner stood and extended his hand in a gesture that was clearly dismissive rather than congratulatory. "Thank you for coming in, Mr. Walker. We'll be in touch." Adam knew what that meant. Everyone knew what that meant. He walked out of Henderson and Associates at 9:08 a.m., his suit still damp with sweat, his heart heavier than it had ever been. The elevator ride down felt like a descent into darkness. The walk to his car felt like the march of a condemned man. He sat behind the wheel for a long time, staring at nothing, feeling nothing. And then, slowly, he pulled out his phone and dialed the number of the warehouse where he'd been picking up shifts. "Hey, Carl, it's Adam. Yeah, the interview didn't work out. Any chance you've got something for me tomorrow?" Yeah, I understand. Thanks." He hung up, closed his eyes, and allowed himself for just a moment to feel the full weight of his despair. He had done the right thing. He had stopped to help a stranger. He had been kind when it would have been easy to be selfish. And now he had nothing to show for it except another failure, another closed door, another step deeper into the hole that was slowly swallowing his life. The drive home was a fog of numbness. Adam barely registered the roads, the traffic, the city materializing around him. All he could think about was how he was going to tell Maddie, how he was going to explain that Daddy had failed again. that things weren't going to get better, that the nice apartment and the new school and the future he had promised her were all just dreams that would never come true. When he finally pulled into the parking lot of his apartment building, he sat there for another 10 minutes, trying to compose himself, trying to find the strength to paste on a smile and pretend everything was fine. Mrs. Patterson was in the hallway when he walked in, her ancient Yorkie tucked under her arm. She took one look at his face, and her expression softened. "Oh, honey," she said, "it didn't go well, did it?" Adam shook his head, not trusting himself to speak. "Come here." She reached up with her free hand and patted his cheek gently. "You're a good man, Adam Walker. Whatever happened, I know you did your best, and sometimes that's all we can do." "I helped someone," Adam heard himself saying. "A woman on the road. Her car broke down. I stopped to help her, and it made me late. And now," Mrs. Patterson nodded slowly, "and now you're wondering if it was worth it." "Yeah, I guess I am." The old woman was quiet for a moment, her rheumy eyes studying his face. "My Harold, God rest his soul, used to say something that stuck with me. He used to say, 'Martha, the measure of a person isn't what they do when it's easy. It's what they do when it costs them something.' You helped that woman when it cost you something, Adam. That means something. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it means something." Adam tried to smile, though it felt more like a grimace. "Thanks, Mrs. Patterson. I hope you're right. I'm 73 years old, young man. I'm always right." Despite everything, Adam felt a small, genuine laugh escape his lips. "I'll keep that in mind." Inside the apartment, Maddie was waiting with Adam's mother, who had been watching her for the morning. Gloria Walker was a formidable woman in her 60s, sharp-tongued and quick-tempered, but with a heart that loved fiercely beneath her gruff exterior. The moment Adam walked through the door, she knew. Mothers always knew. "It didn't work out," she said flatly. "Mom, I told you to leave extra early. I told you not to take any chances. But did you listen? No, you never listen." "Daddy!" Maddie had spotted him and was running across the cramped living room, her arms outstretched. Adam scooped her up and held her tight, burying his face in her hair, breathing in the familiar scent of the strawberry shampoo she insisted on using. "Hey, baby girl, were you good for Grandma?" "I was the best," Maddie declared solemnly. "We made pancakes, but Grandma burned one." "I did not burn it," Gloria said defensively. "It was extra crispy." Adam set Maddie down and met his mother's eyes. The anger was still there, but beneath it he could see something else. Fear. Worry. The same feelings that churned in his own gut every single day. "What happened?" Gloria demanded. "There was an accident on the highway. I took a back road to avoid it, and then—" He hesitated, knowing how his mother would react. "And then I saw a woman stranded on the side of the road. Her car had broken down. I stopped to help her." "You stopped to help her," Gloria repeated, her voice dangerously flat. "She was alone, Mom. She was scared. I couldn't just drive past her." "You couldn't—" Gloria cut herself off, pressing her lips together so tightly they nearly disappeared. Adam, look at me. You had one chance to get your life back on track. One chance to give my granddaughter a real future, and you threw it away to help some stranger who probably didn't even need your help." She did need my help. Her radiator hose blew. She was stuck in a dead zone with no cell service. She could have been there for hours. So what? So what if she was stuck for hours? That's not your problem. Your problem is this apartment. Your problem is the stack of bills on that counter. Your problem is that little girl right there who deserves a father who puts her first. I do put her first. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you put your own conscience first. It looks like you put feeling good about yourself first. You'd rather be a hero to some random woman than a provider for your own daughter. The words hit like blows. Adam felt himself reeling, felt the defensive anger rising in his chest. But beneath it, worse than the anger, was the terrible suspicion that his mother might be right. "That's not fair," he said quietly. "Life isn't fair, Adam. You of all people should know that by now." Gloria grabbed her coat from the back of a chair. "I have to go. I have a doctor's appointment at 11. I assume you'll be here to watch Maddie.
Yeah, I'll be here. Gloria paused at the door, looking back at him. For a moment, the anger in her face flickered, replaced by something softer, something sadder. I love you, son. I do. But sometimes I think you care more about being good than you do about being practical. And in this world, practical is what keeps you alive. She left, closing the door behind her with a click that echoed in the silence. Adam stood there for a long moment, feeling hollow, feeling empty, feeling like everything he'd believed about himself was suddenly in question. And then a small hand slipped into his. Daddy? Maddie looked up at him with those big brown eyes, Sarah's eyes, and Adam felt his heart crack open all over again. Why is Grandma mad? He knelt down so he was at her level. Grandma's not mad, sweetheart. She's just worried. Grown-ups get worried sometimes about things, and when they're worried, they can sound angry even if they're not. Maddie considered this. Are you worried too, Daddy? God, yes, I'm terrified. I'm terrified that I'm failing you, that I'll never be able to give you the life you deserve, that I'll spend the rest of my days scraping by while you grow up in poverty, always knowing that your father wasn't good enough. A little bit, he said aloud, but that's okay. Being worried is part of being a grown-up. It's my job to worry so you don't have to. I don't like it when you worry, Maddie said seriously. Your face gets all scrunchy. Despite everything, Adam laughed. Scrunchy, huh? Yeah, like this. She demonstrated, scrunching up her face so dramatically that she looked like a cartoon character. Well, I'll try to make my face less scrunchy, just for you. Good, Maddie nodded, satisfied. Then she looked at him with sudden curiosity. Daddy, what happened today? You were supposed to go to a meeting. Adam hesitated. She was 6.
She was too young to understand the full weight of what had happened, but she was also incredibly perceptive, and she would know if he lied. I did go to a meeting, he said carefully, but I was a little bit late because I stopped to help a lady whose car was broken, and the people at the meeting were not happy that I was late. Maddie's brow furrowed. But you were helping. That's a good thing. I know, baby, but sometimes doing a good thing doesn't make other people happy. Sometimes doing the right thing comes with a cost. What's a cost? It means that sometimes when you do something good, something not so good happens because of it. Like if you share your cookie with a friend, that's a good thing. But now you have less cookie for yourself. That's the cost. Maddie thought about this for a long moment. But you would still share the cookie, right? Because it's nice? Adam smiled, though his heart ached. Yeah, baby. I would still share the cookie. Me too, Maddie declared, even if I only get a little bit. Adam pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly against his chest. You're a good kid, Maddie. The best kid in the whole world. I know, she said matter-of-factly, and Adam laughed again, a real laugh this time, one that came from somewhere deep inside him. Maybe his mother was right. Maybe he was too focused on being good instead of being practical. Maybe in the real world, kindness was a luxury that people like him couldn't afford. But looking at his daughter, seeing the way she smiled, the way she believed in sharing cookies even when it meant having less, Adam couldn't bring himself to regret what he'd done. He had helped someone. He had done the right thing. And maybe, just maybe, that would have to be enough. That night, after Maddie was asleep, Adam sat at the tiny kitchen table with a cold cup of coffee and a stack of bills he couldn't pay. The numbers swam before his eyes, each one a reminder of his failure. Rent due in 2 weeks. Electricity bill past due. Medical bills from Maddie's last doctor visit still accumulating interest. He pulled out his phone and stared at the screen for a long time. Then, almost against his will, he opened his email and started drafting a message to the construction company where he'd been picking up warehouse shifts. Dear Carl, I hope this finds you well. I wanted to thank you again for the opportunity to work with your team over the past several months. As I mentioned on the phone earlier today, my interview at Henderson & Associates did not result in an offer. As such, I would like to request any additional shifts that might be available in the coming weeks. I am willing to work any hours, any days, any positions. Anything you have, I'll take. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Adam Walker. He pressed send before he could talk himself out of it. Then he closed the email app and opened his photos, scrolling back through the gallery until he found the picture he was looking for. It was from 4.5 years ago. Sarah was in the hospital bed, exhausted but radiant, newborn Maddie cradled in her arms. Adam was beside her, his arm around her shoulders, his face split with the biggest, most genuine smile he had ever smiled in his life. He had been so happy. They had been so happy. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the photograph. "I'm sorry I'm not doing better. I'm trying, Sarah. I promise I'm trying." The apartment was silent. The city hummed outside, indifferent to his pain. And somewhere across town, in a warm office building with floor-to-ceiling windows, Charles Henderson was probably interviewing Adam's replacement, someone who had shown up on time, someone who hadn't been foolish enough to stop for a stranger on the side of the road. Adam set the phone down and dropped his head into his hands. Tomorrow, he would wake up early. Tomorrow, he would put on his work boots and his worn jeans and his faded t-shirt, and he would go back to hauling boxes or mixing concrete or doing whatever menial labor would keep his family afloat for another week. Tomorrow, he would smile at Maddie and tell her everything was going to be okay. But tonight, in the darkness of his cramped apartment, with the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders, tonight, Adam Walker allowed himself to break. The tears came slowly at first, then faster, then in great heaving sobs that shook his entire body. He cried for Sarah, gone too soon. He cried for Maddie, who deserved so much more than he could give. He cried for himself, for the man he used to be, the man he still wanted to be, the man who was slowly disappearing beneath the crushing weight of poverty and despair. He cried until there was nothing left, until his eyes were dry and his throat was raw and his chest felt hollow and empty. And then slowly, painfully, he pulled himself together. Because tomorrow was coming whether he was ready or not. And no matter how broken he felt, no matter how hopeless things seemed, he had a daughter who needed him to keep going. Adam Walker wiped his face, took a deep breath, and started making a list of things he needed to do in the morning. The world might have knocked him down today, but he wasn't out yet. Not yet. The weeks that followed the failed interview at Henderson and Associates blurred together like watercolors bleeding into one another on a rain-soaked canvas. Adam fell into a rhythm that was less a routine and more a survival mechanism. Wake before dawn, kiss Maddie goodbye while she still slept, drag his aching body to whatever job site needed an extra pair of hands, work until his muscles screamed and his mind went numb, then stumble home in time to make dinner and pretend that everything was fine. The construction company Carl ran wasn't glamorous work. It wasn't the kind of job that appeared on career websites or required a polished resume. But it paid cash at the end of each day, and for Adam, that was enough. It had to be enough. On his first full day back at the site after the interview disaster, Carl, a barrel-chested man in his 50s with a permanent squint from years spent working under the sun, had pulled him aside during the morning break. "Heard about the Henderson thing," Carl said, not unkindly. "Rough break." Adam shrugged, sipping the burnt coffee that was the only thing keeping him upright. "It is what it is. I was late. They didn't like it. Story of my life." "You were late because you stopped to help someone, right? That's what you told me on the phone." "Yeah, a woman with a broken-down car. Middle of nowhere. I couldn't just leave her there." Carl studied him for a long moment, his weathered face unreadable. "Most guys would have driven right past, especially with something that important on the line." "I'm not most guys, I guess." "No," Carl agreed. "You're not." He clapped Adam on the shoulder, a gesture that was surprisingly gentle for such a large man. "Look, I can't give you an engineering job. That's not what we do here. But I can give you steady work, every day if you want it. Won't make you rich, but it'll keep food on the table." Adam had looked down at his hands, callous now, rough from weeks of manual labor, so different from the soft hands of the engineer he used to be, and nodded. "I'll take it," he said. "Every day. Whatever you've got." And so began the new chapter of Adam Walker's life, a chapter written not in blueprints and structural calculations, but in sweat and sawdust and the dull ache of muscles pushed past their limits. The work was brutally physical, hauling lumber, mixing concrete, carrying bags of cement that weighed nearly as much as Maddie.
Day after day, week after week, Adam threw himself into the labor with a kind of desperate intensity, as if he could somehow work hard enough to outrun his own despair. His body adapted, slowly. The first few days, he could barely move when he got home, every muscle fiber screaming in protest, every joint stiff and swollen. But gradually, painfully, he grew stronger. His shoulders broadened. His arms developed a wiry strength that surprised him when he caught his reflection in the bathroom mirror. His mind, however, was slower to heal. Every night, after Maddie was asleep, Adam would lie awake staring at the water-stained ceiling, replaying the events of that morning on Old Mill Road. The woman's frightened face, the broken-down sedan, the choice that had cost him everything. Had it been worth it? He asked himself that question 100 times, 1,000 times, and every time he came up with the same answer. He didn't know. He genuinely didn't know. Some nights, when the weight of his failure pressed down on him like a physical force, he wished he could go back and make a different choice. Drive past. Keep going. Arrive at Henderson & Associates 15 minutes early, just like a good candidate should. Get the job. Build a better life. But then he would think about Sophie Brennan, the fear in her eyes, the tremor in her voice, the gratitude that had flooded her face when he agreed to help. And he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Not fully, not completely. He had done the right thing. He had to believe that doing the right thing still meant something, even in a world that seemed determined to punish him for it. Gloria came by every Sunday for dinner, a tradition that predated Sarah's death and had somehow survived it. She would arrive at 5 o'clock sharp with a casserole dish in hand and criticism on her lips, ready to inspect Adam's housekeeping, Maddie's appearance, and the general state of her son's crumbling life. On the third Sunday after the interview, she arrived to find Adam slumped at the kitchen table, so exhausted he could barely keep his eyes open. Maddie was in the corner, playing quietly with Mr. Whiskers and a set of wooden blocks that had been a birthday gift from Mrs. Patterson. "You look terrible," Gloria announced, setting down her casserole with more force than necessary. "Thanks, Mom. Love you too." "Don't get smart with me." She pulled out a chair and sat down across from him, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. The dark circles under his eyes, the new calluses on his hands, the way his clothes hung slightly looser on his frame than they had a month ago. "How much weight have you lost?" "I don't know. I don't weigh myself." "You should. You're wasting away." She reached out and grabbed his wrist, turning it over to examine his palm. "Look at these hands. You used to have an engineer's hands. Now you have a laborer's hands." "I am a laborer now, Mom." "You're an engineer who's working as a laborer. There's a difference." Gloria released his wrist and sat back, her expression a complicated mixture of disappointment and worry. "This isn't sustainable, Adam. You know that, right? You can't keep doing this forever." "I can keep doing it as long as I need to." "And what about Maddie? What about her future? You think she's going to have opportunities growing up in this apartment, going to that school, watching her father destroy himself with manual labor?" Adam felt the familiar anger rising in his chest, the same anger that flared every time his mother pushed him, questioned him, criticized him. But beneath the anger was something worse, the knowledge that she wasn't entirely wrong. "What would you have me do, Mom?" he asked, his voice carefully controlled. "I've sent out dozens of applications, hundreds. Nobody wants to hire an engineer who's been out of the field for 2 years. Nobody wants to take a chance on the guy who couldn't even show up to his interview on time. Then you need to try harder, network more, reach out to old colleagues. There must be someone who, I've done all of that. I've done everything. I've called everyone I used to work with. Most of them don't even return my calls anymore. The ones who do give me the same answer every time. Sorry, Adam, we don't have anything right now. Good luck." Gloria was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, more hesitant. "Have you ever thought about moving?" "Moving where?" "I don't know, somewhere with more opportunities, somewhere cheaper. You could get a fresh start. Leave all of this behind." Adam shook his head slowly. "This is where Sarah is buried, Mom. This is where Maddie was born. This is our home. I can't just leave." "Sarah is gone, Adam." Gloria's voice cracked slightly on the words. "I loved her too, you know. She was the daughter I never had. But she's gone, and you're still here, and you have a little girl who needs you to be practical, to be realistic." "I am being realistic.
I'm doing what I have to do to survive. Surviving isn't living, son. And that little girl deserves a father who's living, not just surviving. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and painful and true. Adam wanted to argue, wanted to defend himself, but what was there to say? His mother was right. She was always right, in her harsh, unforgiving way. Across the room, Maddie looked up from her blocks. Daddy? Grandma? Why are you sad? Gloria's face transformed instantly, the criticism and worry melting away to be replaced by a warm grandmother's smile. We're not sad, Sweet Pea. We're just having a grown-up talk. How about you show me what you're building with those blocks? Maddie immediately launched into an enthusiastic explanation of her construction project. Apparently it was a castle for Mr. Whiskers, complete with a moat and a dragon tower, and the tension in the room dissipated, at least temporarily. But later, after Gloria had gone and Maddie was tucked into bed, Adam found himself standing at the window, looking out at the city lights and thinking about what his mother had said. Surviving isn't living. Was that all he was doing? Surviving? Going through the motions, day after day, without any real hope for the future? He thought about the man he used to be, the young engineer with the beautiful wife and the promising career, the man who had believed that hard work and good intentions would always be rewarded. That man felt like a stranger now, a ghost from another life. Adam closed his eyes and pressed his forehead against the cool glass of the window. I'm still here, he whispered to no one. I'm still trying. But the words felt hollow, even to himself. The days continued to pass, each one indistinguishable from the last. Adam threw himself into his work with the same dogged determination, his body growing stronger even as his spirit grew weaker. He stopped applying for engineering jobs. What was the point? Nobody was going to hire him. Nobody wanted him. He was a cautionary tale now, a warning to other ambitious young professionals about what happened when you let tragedy derail your career. Maddie, at least, seemed happy. She had adjusted to their cramped apartment with the resilience that only children possessed, transforming every corner into an adventure and every challenge into a game. She made friends at her school, a rundown public elementary that was the only thing Adam could afford, and came home every afternoon with stories about what she had learned, what she had drawn, what her classmates had said. She never complained about not having her own room. She never asked why they couldn't go on vacation like her friends' families. She never questioned why Daddy left before sunrise and came home after dark, too exhausted to do anything but make dinner and read her a bedtime story. And that somehow made it all worse. Because Maddie deserved to complain. She deserved to ask for more. She deserved a life where she didn't have to be grateful for the bare minimum. One evening, about 6 weeks after the interview disaster, Adam came home to find Maddie sitting at the kitchen table with a piece of paper in front of her, drawing with her worn box of crayons. She looked up when he walked in, her face lighting up the way it always did. Daddy, look what I made! Adam set down his lunchbox, empty except for the thermos of cold coffee he hadn't finished, and walked over to examine her artwork. It was a drawing of 3 figures standing in front of a house, 2 tall figures and 1 small figure, all holding hands. That's beautiful, baby. Who are these people? That's you, and that's me, and that's Mommy. Maddie pointed to each figure in turn. And that's our house, the one we're going to live in someday. Adam's heart clenched painfully. The one we're going to live in someday? Yeah. You said we're going to get a bigger apartment one day, right? But I don't want an apartment. I want a house. With a backyard. And a dog. Can we get a dog, Daddy? Maybe someday, baby. Maddie nodded, satisfied with this answer. I'm going to hang this on the wall so we remember, so we know what we're wishing for. She jumped down from her chair and ran to the corner where her bed was, carefully taping the drawing to the wall above her pillow. Adam watched her, a lump forming in his throat that he couldn't swallow past. A house, a backyard, a dog. Such simple dreams, such ordinary everyday wishes that millions of children took for granted, and he couldn't give her any of them. That night, after Maddie was asleep, Adam pulled out his laptop, an ancient, battered machine that took 5 minutes to boot up, and started searching for engineering jobs again. It was probably futile. It was almost certainly a waste of time. But he had to try. For Maddie. For the house, and the backyard, and the dog she dreamed of. He sent out 7 applications before exhaustion finally claimed him. 7 more shots in the dark, 7 more hopes that would almost certainly be dashed. But he sent them anyway, because surviving wasn't living, and his daughter deserved a father who was living, not just surviving. The construction site where Adam worked most frequently was a massive commercial project in the downtown core, a gleaming skyscraper that was rising from the ground floor by floor, week by week. It was the kind of building Adam used to design, back when he was an engineer. Now he was just another pair of hands helping to build it. The irony wasn't lost on him. Most of the other workers were decent guys, rough around the edges, sure, but honest and hardworking. They didn't ask too many questions about Adam's background, which suited him fine. The last thing he wanted was to explain how a structural engineer with a master's degree had ended up hauling drywall for $12 an hour. But there was one worker, a young guy named Derek, maybe 25, with a cocky attitude and a chip on his shoulder, who seemed determined to make Adam's life difficult. "Hey, college boy," Derek called out one morning as Adam was loading sheets of plywood onto a cart. "You miss your desk yet? Miss your fancy computer and your air conditioning?" Adam didn't respond, just kept working. He had learned early on that engaging with Derek only made things worse. "I'm talking to you, college boy. What's the matter? Too good to answer me?" "I'm not too good for anything, Derek. I'm just trying to do my job." "Your job?" Derek laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "You know what your problem is? You think you're better than the rest of us. You think you're just slumming it here until something better comes along." "I don't think that at all." "Sure you do. I can see it in your eyes. The way you look at this place, like it's beneath you. Like we're all beneath you." Adam finally stopped what he was doing and turned to face Derek directly. The younger man was standing with his arms crossed, flanked by 2 of his buddies who seemed eager to watch the confrontation unfold. "You want to know what I see when I look at this place?" Adam asked quietly. "I see a job, a paycheck, a way to feed my daughter and keep a roof over her head. That's all. I don't think I'm better than anyone here. I don't think I'm worse than anyone here. I just think I'm a guy who needs to work, same as you." Derek's smirk faltered slightly. "You got a kid?" "A daughter, 6 years old." "Where's her mom?" Adam hesitated. "Gone. She died 4 years ago." The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Derek's buddies shifted awkwardly, suddenly fascinated by their own boots. Derek himself looked almost ashamed, though he tried to hide it behind his usual bravado. "Yeah, well," Derek muttered, "whatever. Just stay out of my way." He walked off, his buddies trailing behind him. Adam watched him go, feeling nothing but a weary resignation. There was always someone like Derek, someone who needed to tear others down to feel good about themselves, someone who saw vulnerability as weakness and kindness as stupidity. But Adam didn't have the energy to hate him. He barely had the energy to get through each day. He turned back to his work, loading plywood onto the cart, trying not to think about Derek or the interview or the drawing of the house that was taped above Maddie's pillow. Just keep moving, just keep working, just keep surviving. It wasn't much of a philosophy, but it was all he had. Another week passed, then another. The skyscraper rose higher, floor by floor, and Adam rose with it, climbing scaffolding, hauling materials, doing whatever needed to be done. His body had finally stopped protesting the physical demands of the work. His muscles had hardened, his stamina had increased, and he could now make it through a 12-hour shift without feeling like he was going to collapse. His spirit, however, was another matter. Every rejection email that arrived, and there were many from the applications he'd sent out that night, felt like another nail in the coffin of his dreams. Every conversation with his mother left him feeling more inadequate, more hopeless, more convinced that he was failing the people who depended on him. And every night, as he lay awake staring at the ceiling, he found himself thinking about Sophie Brennan. Who was she really? Where had she been going that morning? Had she made it to her destination safely? Had she thought about him at all in the weeks since he'd helped her? Probably not, he told himself. He was just a stranger who had stopped on the road. A brief encounter that she had probably forgotten within hours. But for some reason, he couldn't forget her. Couldn't shake the memory of her frightened face, her trembling hands, the way she had looked at him when he said he would help, as if he were the only person in the world who had ever shown her kindness. It was silly, sentimental, the kind of thing he didn't have time for, but he thought about her anyway. On a crisp October morning, about 8 weeks after the interview disaster, everything changed. Adam was on the 14th floor of the skyscraper, helping to install HVAC ducting when someone called out from below. "Heads up! VIPs on site!" The words rippled through the crew like a wave. Tools were set down. Hard hats were adjusted. Everyone straightened up and tried to look busy in a way that would impress whoever was coming to inspect their work. Adam glanced toward the elevator bank, curious despite himself. VIP visits usually meant the building's developers or investors, wealthy people in expensive suits who walked through the construction site like tourists at a zoo, marveling at the workers as if they were exotic animals. The elevator doors opened. A group emerged, 4 or 5 people in business attire, led by a man Adam recognized as Richard Hayes, the developer who was funding the entire project. Hayes was a blustering, red-faced man in his 60s, known for his demanding standards and his habit of firing contractors on the spot if he didn't like what he saw. But Adam barely noticed Hayes, because behind him, walking with the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly where they belonged, was a woman Adam would have recognized anywhere. Sophie Brennan. She was dressed differently than she had been on the road that morning, no longer the disheveled, frightened traveler in a wrinkled blazer, but a polished professional in a tailored navy suit, her dark hair pulled back in an elegant twist. She moved with the easy authority of someone accustomed to being in charge, her head held high, her expression composed and intelligent. Adam stared, unable to look away. What was she doing here? Who was she? And then Richard Hayes turned to her and said, loud enough for everyone on the floor to hear, "Ms. Brennan, as you can see, we're making excellent progress. Your investment in this project has been invaluable." Her investment. This was her project. She wasn't just some stranded commuter. She was one of the people funding the building Adam was constructing. Adam felt the world tilt slightly beneath his feet. Sophie was nodding, saying something to Hayes in a voice too quiet for Adam to hear from his position across the floor. She looked professional, confident, completely in control. And then, as if sensing his gaze, she turned. Their eyes met. For a moment, Sophie's composure flickered. Her brow furrowed slightly, and Adam could see her mind working, trying to place where she had seen him before. Then recognition dawned. Her eyes widened, her lips parted in surprise. And before Adam could look away, before he could pretend he hadn't noticed her, Sophie Brennan was walking directly toward him, leaving the cluster of executives and developers behind. Hayes called after her, confused. "Ms. Brennan, is everything—" "Just a moment, Richard." Her voice was calm but firm, brooking no argument. The entire floor had gone silent. Every worker, every foreman, every supervisor was watching as the elegant woman in the expensive suit crossed the dusty concrete toward the sweaty laborer in the worn hard hat. Adam's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He wanted to disappear. He wanted the floor to open up and swallow him whole. This was the last thing he had expected, the last thing he wanted. To be exposed in front of everyone as the man who had once been an engineer and was now this. Sophie stopped in front of him. Up close, she looked even more striking than he remembered. Her features refined, her bearing elegant, her presence commanding. But her eyes were the same. Warm and grateful and achingly human. "It's you," she said quietly. "Adam Walker, the man who stopped." Adam swallowed hard. "Ms. Brennan, yeah, it's me. I can't believe it." She shook her head slowly, a smile spreading across her face. "I've been trying to find you. I went back to that gas station 3 times, hoping someone would know who you were. I even tried searching online, but there are about 1,000 Adam Walkers in this city." "You were trying to find me?" "Of course I was." She reached out and touched his arm, a gesture so natural, so unguarded, that Adam felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. "You saved me that day. You gave up something important to help me. Did you think I would just forget about that?" Adam didn't know what to say. He was acutely aware of the stares they were attracting, the whispers spreading through the crew, the confused expressions of the executives who had been accompanying Sophie. "I didn't expect anything," he finally managed. "I just saw someone who needed help, that's all." Sophie's smile softened. "That's exactly why I've been looking for you, because you didn't expect anything. because you helped me without thinking about what you might get in return. She paused, her expression growing more serious. What happened with your interview, the one at the engineering firm? Adam looked down at his boots. It didn't work out. Because you were late? Because I was late. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. When Adam finally gathered the courage to look up, he saw something in her eyes that he couldn't quite identify. Determination, maybe. Or perhaps something closer to resolve. Adam Walker, she said slowly, I think we need to talk. Can you take a break? Get some coffee? Adam glanced around at the crew, at the executives still watching from across the floor, at Derek, whose mouth was hanging open in undisguised shock. I don't know if my foreman would... Carl! Sophie called out, her voice carrying across the entire floor. Carl Hendricks, can you come here, please? Adam's foreman, a grizzled veteran of countless construction sites, hurried over, looking nervous. Yes, Miss Brennan? Is there a problem with the work? No problem at all. Everything looks excellent. Sophie gestured toward Adam. I need to borrow Mr. Walker for about an hour. Personal matter, is that acceptable? Carl blinked. Of course, Ms. Brennan, whatever you need. Perfect. Sophie turned back to Adam. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from here, the Blue Finch. Can you meet me there in 10 minutes? Adam nodded, still too stunned to form coherent words. Sophie smiled again. That warm, genuine smile that lit up her entire face. And then she was walking back toward the executives, apologizing for the interruption, resuming her role as the polished businesswoman who belonged in boardrooms and corner offices. And Adam was left standing in the middle of the construction site, covered in dust and sweat, wondering if he had somehow stumbled into someone else's life. Derek sidled up beside him as Adam was gathering his things to leave. Yo, college boy. The usual mockery was gone from his voice, replaced by something closer to awe. Who the hell was that? And how do you know her? I helped her with her car once, Adam said. A couple months ago. Her radiator hose blew. Derek stared at him. You helped her with her car, and now she's pulling you off the job site for coffee, like your old friends. I don't know what she wants, Derek. Whatever it is, it's gotta be better than hauling drywall. Derek shook his head slowly. Man, you really are something else, college boy. Adam didn't respond. He was too busy trying to figure out what had just happened and what it might mean. The Blue Finch was a small, upscale coffee shop that clearly catered to the business crowd. Everything about it screamed expensive. The artisanal pastries in the display case, the hand-painted signs listing coffees Adam had never heard of, the sleek minimalist furniture that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Adam felt acutely out of place in his dusty work clothes and worn boots. Every other customer was dressed in business attire, tapping away on laptops or conducting hushed phone conversations. They glanced at him as he walked in, quick, dismissive looks that took in his appearance and found it wanting. Sophie was already seated at a table in the corner, 2 cups of coffee in front of her. She waved him over, seemingly oblivious to the stares he was attracting. I took the liberty of ordering for you, she said as he sat down. I hope you don't mind. Regular coffee, black, seemed like a safe choice. That's perfect. Thank you. Adam wrapped his calloused hands around the cup, grateful for its warmth. Ms. Brennan, Sophie, please. Sophie. He took a breath. I have to admit, I'm a little confused. What is this about? Sophie leaned back in her chair, studying him with those intelligent eyes. I told you, I've been looking for you, ever since that morning on the road. I wanted to thank you properly, to understand why you did what you did. I already told you why. You needed help. I helped. But it cost you. The interview, the job you were hoping to get. That cost you a great deal, didn't it? Adam was silent for a moment. He thought about lying, about minimizing, about pretending that everything had worked out fine. But something about the way Sophie was looking at him made him want to tell the truth. It cost me everything, he admitted quietly. That job was my way out. My chance to build a real life for my daughter. When I didn't get it, he shrugged, trying to appear casual despite the weight of his words. I went back to construction work. It's honest work. It pays the bills. But it's not what I'm trained for. It's not what I'm good at. You're an engineer, Sophie said. It wasn't a question. I was an engineer, a structural engineer. I worked for a good firm, had a promising career ahead of me, and then my wife died, and everything fell apart. He took a sip of the coffee, using the moment to compose himself. I'm sorry. I don't usually talk about this. I don't know why I'm telling you all of this. Because I asked, Sophie said simply. And because sometimes it helps to talk to someone who isn't part of your everyday life. Someone with a little bit of distance? Adam nodded slowly. Maybe. I don't know. Tell me about the interview, the one you missed. I didn't miss it. I was just late by about a minute. But the senior partner, Charles Henderson, he has very strict standards. He doesn't tolerate lateness. He gave me 5 minutes to convince him to overlook my inauspicious beginning. Adam laughed bitterly. His words, I tried. I really tried. But it wasn't enough. Sophie was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Henderson and Associates. I know that firm. They do excellent work. They're one of the best in the city. Landing a job there would have been... Adam trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Transformative, Sophie supplied. Yeah, transformative. More silence. Sophie sipped her coffee, her brow furrowed in thought. Adam waited, unsure what else there was to say. Finally, Sophie set down her cup and looked at him directly. Adam, I need to tell you something important. Okay? I'm not just some random commuter who broke down on the side of the road that day. I'm the CEO of Brennan Industries. The words took a moment to register. When they did, Adam felt the blood drain from his face. Brennan Industries. He knew that name. Everyone in the construction industry knew that name. Brennan Industries was one of the largest development companies in the region, responsible for dozens of major building projects, including the skyscraper, Adam breathed. The one I've been working on. That's yours? It's one of our projects, yes. Sophie nodded. My father founded the company 35 years ago. He passed away 2 years ago, and I took over as CEO. I was on my way to an important meeting that morning, a negotiation with potential investors who were flying in from overseas. The kind of meeting you absolutely cannot miss. Adam stared at her. And you missed it? I was 2 hours late. By the time I got there, half the investors had already left. Sophie smiled ruefully. It was a disaster. I spent the next 6 months cleaning up the mess, renegotiating deals, trying to salvage relationships that had been damaged by my absence. I'm sorry, Adam said automatically. I didn't know. Don't apologize. That's not why I'm telling you this. Sophie leaned forward, her expression intense. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand something. That morning, on that lonely road, I wasn't just scared because my car had broken down. I was scared because I was alone, in a place where no one could hear me scream, and 5 cars had already driven past without stopping. Do you know what that feels like? To realize that you're invisible? That your distress means nothing to the people around you? Adam nodded slowly. I think I do. And then you stopped. Sophie's voice softened. This stranger in a beat-up Honda on his way to the most important interview of his life, and he stopped. He didn't just drive past. He didn't pretend he hadn't seen me. He pulled over, and he helped me, and he gave me a ride to safety. She paused. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious? I just did what anyone would have done. No, you did what very few people would have done, and you did it at enormous personal cost. Sophie reached into her purse and pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table toward him. I want to help you, Adam, the way you helped me. Adam looked down at the card. It was elegant and understated. Just her name, Sophie Brennan, and a phone number beneath it. I don't understand, he said. I have connections in this industry, connections at every major engineering firm in the city, including Henderson and Associates. Sophie's eyes met his, steady and sincere. I can get you another interview, a real interview where your qualifications are judged fairly without the baggage of being 30 seconds late. Adam's heart was racing. You would do that? For me? You saved me, Adam. Now let me return the favor. For a long moment, Adam couldn't speak. The weight of her words pressed down on him, almost unbearable in their kindness.
He thought about all the nights he had lain awake, wondering if stopping to help Sophie had been the biggest mistake of his life. All the times he had questioned his own judgment, his own values, his own belief that doing the right thing still mattered. And now here she was, offering him a second chance, a chance he had never expected, never dreamed of. "There's a catch, though," Sophie said, interrupting his thoughts. Adam's stomach dropped. Of course there was a catch. There was always a catch. "What is it?" "I can get you the interview. I can open the door. But I'm not going to push you through it." Sophie's expression was serious now, all business. "If you get a second chance at Henderson Associates, or anywhere else, you have to earn it, purely on your own merit. I won't put my thumb on the scale. I won't ask for favors or make threats. All I can do is make sure you get a fair shot." Adam let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "That's not a catch. That's exactly what I want." "Good," Sophie smiled. "Then we have a deal." She extended her hand across the table. Adam took it, feeling the firmness of her grip, the warmth of her palm against his calloused fingers. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You have no idea what this means to me." "I think I do," Sophie replied. "I think I know exactly what it means." She held his hand for a moment longer than necessary, her eyes locked on his. And in that moment, Adam felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time, something he had almost forgotten existed. Hope. Real, genuine, terrifying hope. The hope that maybe, just maybe, his story wasn't over yet. That maybe the choice he had made on that lonely road hadn't been a mistake after all. That maybe kindness still mattered, even in a world that seemed determined to prove otherwise. When Adam returned to the construction site, Carl was waiting for him with a peculiar expression on his face, something between curiosity and concern. "Everything okay, Walker?" Yeah, everything's fine." Adam picked up his hard hat and prepared to get back to work. "Just an old acquaintance. Wanted to catch up." Carl studied him for a moment. "She seemed like more than an old acquaintance, the way she looked at you." "It's a long story." "I bet it is." Carl clapped him on the shoulder. "Whatever it is, I hope it works out for you. You're a good worker, Adam, better than most. But I've always thought you were meant for something bigger than hauling drywall." Adam didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded and got back to work. But for the rest of the day, his mind was elsewhere, replaying the conversation with Sophie, turning over her offer like a precious stone, trying to convince himself that it was real. That night, after Maddie was asleep, Adam sat at the kitchen table with Sophie's business card in front of him. He stared at it for a long time, the white cardstock bright against the scratched wood surface. Then he picked up his phone and started preparing. If he was going to get another shot at Henderson and Associates, he was going to be ready. He was going to be more than ready. He was going to be the candidate they couldn't refuse. The news spread through the construction site like wildfire. By the time Adam returned to work the next morning, everyone knew. Every foreman, every laborer, every supervisor had heard some version of the story. The mysterious woman in the expensive suit who had walked onto the 14th floor and plucked Adam Walker from obscurity like he was somebody important. The rumors were wild, ranging from the plausible to the absurd. Some said she was a long-lost relative. Others speculated that Adam had saved her life in some dramatic fashion. A few whispered that she must be his secret girlfriend, a wealthy benefactress who was about to whisk him away to a better life. Derek, predictably, was the most vocal about the whole thing. "Yo, college boy!" he called out as Adam climbed off the elevator, hard hat already in place. "Word on the street is you've got yourself a sugar mama. That true? She gonna buy you a penthouse or what?" Adam ignored him, heading toward the section of the floor where he had been assigned for the day. But Derek was persistent, falling into step beside him with a grin that was half mocking, half genuinely curious. "Come on, man. You gotta give us something. Who is she? How do you know her?" "I told you already," Adam said evenly. "I helped her with her car once. That's it." "That's it? She pulled you off the job site for an hour. The CEO of Brennan Industries doesn't just pull random construction workers off job sites for an hour because they helped her with her car." Adam stopped walking and turned to face Derek directly. "Listen, I don't know what you want me to say. I don't know what she wants.
I don't know why she singled me out yesterday. All I know is that I did her a favor a couple months ago, and she seems to think she owes me one in return."
Derek studied him for a long moment, his usual bravado fading into something more thoughtful. "You really don't know, do you? You really have no idea what's about to happen to your life." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Sophie Brennan isn't just some random rich lady college boy. She's one of the most powerful people in this city. Her company is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. If she decides she wants to help you..." Derek shook his head slowly. "Let's just say your drywall hauling days are probably numbered." Adam didn't respond. He didn't know how to respond. The whole situation still felt surreal, like something out of a dream, or maybe a fairy tale. The kind of story where the noble peasant helps the disguised princess and gets rewarded with half the kingdom. But this wasn't a fairy tale. This was real life. And in real life, things rarely worked out the way they did in stories.
He got back to work, trying to push thoughts of Sophie Brennan and second chances out of his mind. There was drywall to haul, ducts to install, a paycheck to earn. Whatever Sophie was planning, whatever opportunities she might be arranging, he couldn't afford to stop working until it actually materialized. Hope was nice, but hope didn't pay the rent. The call came 3 days later. Adam was sitting at the kitchen table, eating a dinner of leftover spaghetti while Maddie worked on her homework across from him, when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, expecting it to be Carl with information about tomorrow's shift. Instead, he saw an unfamiliar number with a local area code. "Hello? Mr. Walker. Adam Walker." "Yes, this is Adam. My name is Patricia Hendricks. I'm the executive assistant to Charles Henderson at Henderson and Associates. I'm calling to inform you that we would like to invite you back for a second interview." Adam nearly dropped the phone.
"I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" "Certainly. Henderson and Associates would like to invite you back for a second interview. Mr. Henderson has reviewed your portfolio again and believes you deserve another opportunity to demonstrate your qualifications." There was a pause. "Are you available next Tuesday at 10 a.m.? Adam's mind was racing. He had been rejected, definitively, unambiguously rejected. Charles Henderson had made it abundantly clear that Adam's late arrival had disqualified him from consideration, and now, suddenly, out of nowhere. Sophie. This had to be Sophie's doing. "Mr. Walker, are you still there?" "Yes. Yes, I'm here. Tuesday at 10 a.m. I'll be there." "Excellent. Please arrive at least 15 minutes early. Mr. Henderson values punctuality highly." "I understand. I'll be there at 9:30. "Perfect. We look forward to seeing you, Mr. Walker." The call ended. Adam sat there, staring at his phone, feeling as if the world had suddenly tilted on its axis. "Daddy?" Maddie was looking at him with concern. "What's wrong? You look weird." "Nothing's wrong, baby." Adam set down the phone, a smile spreading across his face. A real smile, the kind he hadn't felt in months. Something good just happened. Something really, really good. "What?" "I got another chance at something I thought was lost forever." Maddie considered this information with the seriousness that only a 6-year-old could muster. "Is it like when I dropped my ice cream cone and then Grandma bought me another one?" Adam laughed, a genuine, full-bodied laugh that surprised even him. "Yeah, baby, it's exactly like that." That night, after Maddie was asleep, Adam called Sophie. She picked up on the second ring. "Adam, I was hoping I'd hear from you. I got the call from Henderson and Associates. They want me to come back for another interview." "I know." He could hear the smile in her voice. "I spoke with Charles Henderson personally. It took some convincing, but he agreed to give you another shot." "Sophie, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me. I told you, I owed you one. This makes us even." "This is more than even. This is..." Adam struggled to find the words. "This is life-changing. You understand that, right? If I get this job, when you get this job," Sophie corrected gently. "Not if, when. I've seen your portfolio, Adam. I know your background. You're exactly the kind of engineer Henderson needs. All you have to do is show up, be yourself, and let your work speak for itself." "But what if I mess it up? What if I say the wrong thing? Or..." "Adam, Sophie's voice was firm but kind. Stop. You're spiraling. I can hear it in your voice. Adam took a deep breath. Yeah, okay, sorry, I've been disappointed so many times. It's hard to believe that something good might actually happen.
I understand, but here's what I need you to remember. I didn't get you this interview as a favor or a handout. I got it for you because you deserve it, because your work is genuinely impressive, because you helped me when you had every reason not to, and that tells me something important about who you are as a person. She paused. Charles Henderson might be tough, but he's fair. If you show him what you're capable of, he'll see it. Adam was quiet for a moment, letting her words sink in. Thank you, Sophie, for believing in me. Thank you for being worth believing in. The days leading up to the interview were a blur of preparation and anxiety. Adam pulled out his old engineering textbooks, brushing up on concepts he hadn't touched in years. He reviewed his portfolio a dozen times, rehearsing explanations for each project, anticipating questions Henderson might ask. He practiced interview answers in front of the bathroom mirror, watching his own face for signs of nervousness or uncertainty. Gloria came by on Sunday, as usual, and for once, she didn't criticize him. You look different, she said, studying him with narrowed eyes. What's going on? I got another interview at Henderson and Associates. His mother's eyebrows shot up. The same firm that rejected you? The same one. Someone put in a good word for me. I'm going back on Tuesday. Gloria was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer than he'd heard it in months. This is your chance, Adam. Your real chance. Don't mess it up this time. I won't, Mom. I mean it. No stopping for strangers on the side of the road. No helping lost puppies or rescuing kittens from trees. Get there early, do the interview, come home with the job. Do you understand? Adam almost smiled at the irony. The fact that stopping for a stranger was exactly what had led to this second opportunity, but he kept his face serious. I understand. I'll be there an hour early if I have to. Gloria nodded, satisfied. Then, unexpectedly, she reached out and squeezed his hand. I'm proud of you, son. I don't say that often enough, but I am. You've been through hell these past few years, and you've never stopped fighting. That takes strength. Adam felt his throat tighten. Thanks, Mom. Now go prepare, and for God's sake, get a haircut before Tuesday. Tuesday morning arrived with the pale, hesitant light of early autumn. Adam was awake before his alarm, lying in bed and staring at the ceiling, running through interview scenarios in his head. He had laid out his suit the night before, the same charcoal gray thrift store find, now freshly dry cleaned and pressed. His resume was in a leather folder he'd borrowed from Carl. His portfolio was organized and pristine. He got up, showered, shaved, and dressed with meticulous care. When he looked in the mirror, he saw someone who almost resembled the engineer he used to be. A little older, a little more weathered, but still recognizable, still capable. Maddie was still asleep when he left. He kissed her forehead gently, whispered, "Wish me luck, baby girl," and slipped out the door. He arrived at Henderson and Associates at 9:15 a.m., 45 minutes early. The receptionist, the same severe woman from his first visit, looked up as he entered, recognition flickering in her eyes. "Mr. Walker, you're early." "Yes, ma'am. I didn't want to take any chances." Something that might have been approval crossed her face. "Please have a seat. Mr. Henderson will be with you shortly." Adam sat down in one of the sleek leather chairs in the waiting area, folder clutched in his lap, and tried to control his breathing. The office was just as intimidating as he remembered, all gleaming surfaces and expensive artwork, the kind of place that screamed success and power, the kind of place where people like him usually didn't belong. But maybe, just maybe, he could prove that assumption wrong. At 9:55 a.m., the door to the inner office opened and Charles Henderson emerged. He looked exactly as Adam remembered him, tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, with an expression that gave nothing away. His eyes swept over Adam, assessing, evaluating, finding something. Adam couldn't tell what. "Mr. Walker," Henderson's voice was neutral. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for the opportunity, sir." Henderson nodded curtly. "Come in." The office was even more impressive than Adam had imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a panoramic view of the city, walls lined with awards and diplomas, a massive mahogany desk that probably cost more than Adam's car. Henderson gestured to a chair across from the desk, and Adam sat, trying to project a confidence he didn't entirely feel. "I'll be honest with you, Mr. Walker." Henderson settled into his own chair, steeping his fingers beneath his chin. "When I received the call asking me to reconsider your application, my first instinct was to refuse." Adam's heart sank. "I understand, sir." "Do you? Because I'm not sure you do." Henderson's gaze was piercing. "In 35 years of running this firm, I have never, not once, invited a candidate back after rejecting them. Punctuality isn't just a preference for me. It's a fundamental indicator of character. A person who can't manage their time cannot be trusted to manage complex engineering projects." "Yes, sir. I understand that now. And yet here you are." Henderson leaned back slightly. "Do you know why?" "Because someone spoke to you on my behalf." "Sophie Brennan spoke to me on your behalf." "Do you know who Sophie Brennan is?" "I do now. She's the CEO of Brennan Industries, one of your firm's most important clients." Henderson nodded slowly. "Brennan Industries has been responsible for approximately 30% of our revenue over the past decade. When Sophie Brennan asks for a favor, I listen, but make no mistake. I am not in the habit of hiring unqualified candidates simply because a wealthy client asks me to." "I wouldn't expect you to, sir." "Good, because that's not what's happening here." Henderson picked up a folder from his desk. Adam recognized it as his own portfolio and flipped it open. "I reviewed your work again after Sophie's call. The Riverside Bridge project, the downtown transit hub, the residential tower on 5th Street. All of it is genuinely impressive." Adam blinked. "Thank you, sir." "I'm not complimenting you. I'm stating a fact." Henderson set the portfolio down and fixed Adam with a hard stare. "Here's what I want to know. Sophie Brennan told me a story about how you helped her when her car broke down. She said you gave up your interview slot to assist her. Is that true?" "Yes, sir." "Why?" The question caught Adam off guard. "Why what, sir?" "Why did you stop? You knew what was at stake. You knew that being late could cost you the job. Why would you sacrifice something so important to help a complete stranger?" Adam was quiet for a moment, considering the question. He could give a diplomatic answer, something about professionalism and character and doing the right thing, but something about Henderson's intensity made him want to tell the truth. "Because my wife would have wanted me to," he said finally. Henderson's eyebrows rose slightly. "Your wife?" "She died 4 years ago. Car accident." Adam's voice was steady, though the words still hurt to say. "We used to talk about this kind of thing, what it means to be a good person, how to live with integrity. She always said that the choices you make when no one's watching are the ones that define you, the choices that cost you something." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "That morning, on that road, I had a choice. I could drive past and make my interview on time, or I could stop and help someone who was clearly frightened and alone. And I kept thinking about what Sarah would say if I drove past, what she would think of me." Adam met Henderson's eyes. "I couldn't do it. I couldn't be the person who drove past." The silence stretched between them. Henderson's expression was unreadable. "And do you regret it?" Henderson asked finally. "Stopping for her?" Adam considered the question carefully. "I regretted losing this opportunity. I regretted not being able to provide better for my daughter, but helping Sophie Brennan?" He shook his head. "No, I never regretted that. Not for a moment." Henderson stared at him for what felt like an eternity. Then slowly something shifted in his expression, a softening around the eyes, a slight relaxation of his rigid posture. "My wife passed away 8 years ago," Henderson said quietly. "Cancer. Took her in 6 months." Adam felt his breath catch. "I'm sorry, sir." "She used to say something similar, actually, about the choices that define us." Henderson was quiet for a moment, lost in memory. "I've spent 35 years building this firm, hiring the best engineers, taking on the most challenging projects, establishing a reputation for excellence. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that excellence isn't just about technical skill. It's about character, about the kind of people we are when no one's watching." He picked up Adam's portfolio again, flipping through the pages with renewed interest. Tell me about the Riverside Bridge, he said. I want to hear about the challenges you faced and how you solved them. Adam felt something loosen in his chest, the tight knot of anxiety that had been there since he walked through the door. This wasn't a formality. This wasn't a box being checked. Henderson was genuinely interested, genuinely reconsidering. He leaned forward and began to talk. The interview lasted 2 hours. 2 hours of questions and answers, of technical discussions and philosophical debates, of Henderson probing every aspect of Adam's experience and knowledge. It was intense, demanding, exhausting, and exactly what Adam had been craving since his career fell apart. Henderson asked about load calculations and material stresses, about building codes and safety protocols. He asked about the Riverside Bridge and the transit hub and half a dozen other projects Adam had worked on before his life imploded. He asked about failures, times when things had gone wrong, and listened carefully to how Adam had responded, what he had learned. And through it all, beneath the technical questions, there was a deeper current. Henderson was testing more than Adam's engineering knowledge. He was testing his character, his resilience, his ability to stay calm under pressure and think clearly when everything was on the line. When it was finally over, Henderson stood and extended his hand. Thank you for your time, Mr. Walker. That was illuminating. Adam shook his hand, trying to read the older man's expression. Thank you for the opportunity, sir. I appreciate you giving me a second chance. I don't believe in second chances, Henderson said. I believe in evidence, in demonstrated capability, in the willingness to learn from mistakes. He paused. You've given me a great deal to think about. When can I expect to hear something? Soon, within the week. Henderson walked him to the door. One more question, Mr. Walker. If I were to offer you a position here, what would you do differently this time? How would you ensure that the problems of the past don't repeat themselves? Adam didn't hesitate. I would be honest about my limitations, sir, about my struggles. I've learned that trying to handle everything alone doesn't work. I need support, professional support, personal support. I need to be willing to ask for help when I need it. He paused. And I need to never stop being the kind of person who helps others, because that's who I am. That's who I want to be. Henderson studied him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, a small, barely there expression that transformed his severe features. Get out of here, Mr. Walker. I have other meetings to attend. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Adam walked out of Henderson and Associates feeling lighter than he had in years. He didn't know what the outcome would be. He didn't know if he had impressed Henderson enough to overcome the lingering doubts about his punctuality and reliability. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He had given it everything he had. He had been honest, authentic, himself. Whatever happened next was out of his hands. The walk back to his car took him past the Blue Finch, the coffee shop where he'd met with Sophie. On impulse, he stepped inside and ordered a cup of coffee, expensive, artisanal, nothing like the burnt gas station brew he usually survived on. He sat at a table by the window and watched the city move past, feeling the warmth of the cup in his hands. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. How did it go? Adam smiled and typed back. Good, I think, really good. He asked about you. 3 dots appeared, then, all good things, I hope. The best things. Thank you again, Sophie, for everything. Her response came quickly. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you get the offer. When, not if. Sophie's confidence was infectious. Adam finished his coffee and headed home, ready to tell Maddie that Daddy might be getting some very good news soon. The days that followed were an exercise in patience. Adam went back to work at the construction site, hauling materials and installing ducts, trying not to check his phone every 5 minutes. The other workers noticed his distracted state, but most of them left him alone. Word had spread about the mysterious interview, and there was a general sense that something big was happening in Adam Walker's life. Derek, of course, couldn't resist commenting. Still waiting to hear, college boy. Still waiting? Must be nice, and having rich friends who can open doors for you. Adam set down the bundle of wiring he was carrying and turned to face Derek. Let me ask you something. If someone offered to help you, really help you, in a way that could change your life, would you turn it down?
Would you say, no thanks, I'd rather struggle on my own just because you didn't want to feel like you owed anyone? Derek was quiet for a moment. I don't know. Maybe. Really? Because I've got a daughter at home who's dreaming about a house with a backyard and a dog. And I've got a mother who's worried sick about whether I'm going to make it. And I've got about 6 years of my life that I'll never get back, lost to grief and poverty and just surviving. Adam's voice was steady, but there was an edge to it now. So no, I'm not going to apologize for accepting help when it's offered. I'm not going to pretend that I'm too proud or too independent to take a hand when someone extends one, because pride doesn't pay the bills. Pride doesn't give my daughter a better life. Derek stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly, he nodded. Fair enough, college boy, fair enough.
He walked away and Adam got back to work, his heart pounding from the unexpected confrontation. He didn't usually speak so openly about his situation, didn't usually let people see beneath the surface. But something had shifted in him over the past few weeks, a willingness to be vulnerable, to be honest about his struggles instead of hiding them behind a mask of competence and control. Maybe that was what Henderson had responded to. Not just his technical skills, but his authenticity, his willingness to show up as his full, imperfect human self. Maybe that was what Sophie had seen in him all along. 5 days after the interview, the call finally came. Adam was on the construction site, eating lunch in the makeshift break area, when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and saw the familiar number for Henderson and Associates. His heart stopped. He stood up so abruptly that he knocked over his water bottle. The other workers looked up, sensing the tension in his body, watching as he stepped away from the group and answered the call. Hello. Mr. Walker, this is Patricia Hendricks from Henderson and Associates. Yes? Hello? I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Henderson. He wanted me to inform you that after careful consideration, the firm has decided to extend you an offer of employment. The world seemed to tilt. Adam grabbed the edge of a sawbuck to steady himself. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? We're offering you the position of senior structural engineer, Mr. Walker. The salary is $85,000 annually, with full benefits, including health insurance, dental, vision, and a 401k with company matching. You would start in 2 weeks, pending completion of the standard background check and paperwork. Adam couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The numbers Patricia was reciting, 85,000, full benefits, senior position, were so far beyond what he had dared to hope for that they didn't seem real. Mr. Walker, are you still there? Yes, I'm here. I'm just... He laughed, a slightly hysterical sound that he couldn't suppress. I'm sorry, this is a lot to take in. I understand. There was warmth in Patricia's voice now, a far cry from the frost he remembered from his previous visits. Mr. Henderson asked me to tell you something else, off the record. What's that? He said that in 35 years he's never met anyone quite like you, and he's looking forward to seeing what you can accomplish. Adam closed his eyes, feeling tears prick at the corners. Tell him thank you. Tell him I won't let him down. I will. Welcome to Henderson and Associates, Mr. Walker. We'll send over the formal offer letter this afternoon. The call ended. Adam stood there, phone clutched in his hand, trying to process what had just happened. He had done it. Against all odds, despite everything that had gone wrong, he had done it. He was an engineer again. The reactions came flooding in over the next few hours. Carl was the first to hear, grabbing Adam's hand and shaking it vigorously. I knew it, Walker. I knew you were meant for bigger things. Don't forget us little people when you're designing skyscrapers. The other workers offered their congratulations, some sincere, some grudging, all of them acknowledging that something remarkable had happened. Even Derek approached him, awkwardly extending his hand. Hey, college boy, Adam. Derek's expression was complicated, embarrassment mixed with something that might have been respect. Congrats on the job, seriously. Thanks, Derek. And, sorry for giving you such a hard time. I was kind of a jerk. Adam shook his hand. Forget about it. We're good, Gloria cried when he told her. Actually cried, tears streaming down her face as she clutched him in a hug that was tighter than any she'd given him since he was a child.
I'm so proud of you, she sobbed into his shoulder. I'm so proud, Adam. I always knew you could do it. I always knew. Adam held her, feeling his own tears threatening to spill over. All those months of criticism, of doubt, of harsh words, and underneath it all, his mother had believed in him. Had been terrified for him, yes, frustrated with him, certainly, but believing in him all along. Thanks, Mom, for everything, even the tough love. Gloria pulled back, wiping her eyes. Someone had to keep you grounded, keep you fighting. You did. You always have. And Maddie, sweet, beautiful, resilient Maddie, simply looked at him with those big brown eyes and said, "Does this mean we can get a dog now?" Adam laughed, sweeping her up into his arms. "Let's start with a bigger apartment, baby girl.
Then we'll talk about the dog. Promise?" Promise. The last call he made that night was to Sophie. She answered immediately. "I heard from Patricia. Congratulations, Adam. You did it." "No, we did it. You made this possible." "I opened a door. You're the one who walked through it." Sophie's voice was warm with genuine happiness. "Henderson called me personally after he made the decision. Do you know what he said?" "What?" "He said you were the most authentic candidate he'd ever interviewed, that you didn't try to hide your past or make excuses. You just showed up and let your work speak for itself." She paused. "He also said that your answer about your wife, about why you stopped to help me, was what convinced him." Adam felt his throat tighten. "Really?" "Really. He said it reminded him of why he got into engineering in the first place, to build things that matter, to make a difference in people's lives." Sophie's voice softened. "You reminded him of who he wanted to be, Adam. That's a powerful thing." Adam was quiet for a long moment, trying to absorb her words. Everything he had been through, the grief, the failure, the years of struggle, suddenly seemed to have a purpose, a meaning, a direction. "Sophie, I don't know how to thank you. I really don't." "Then don't thank me. Just promise me one thing." "Anything." "Promise me you'll keep being the person who stops for strangers on the side of the road. Promise me you won't let success change that part of you." Adam smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "I promise." "Good. Then I'd say we're even." They talked for a few more minutes about the job, about Maddie, about the future. And then Sophie said she had to go. Some urgent business matter that required her attention. "But Adam, let's get coffee sometime. I'd like to hear how things are going once you've settled in." "I'd like that too." "Take care of yourself, and give Maddie a hug for me." "I will." The call ended and Adam sat there in the quiet of his cramped apartment, surrounded by the evidence of his struggles, the water-stained ceiling, the creaking radiator, the mattress on the floor. In 2 weeks, he would start his new job. In a month, maybe less, he would move Maddie into a real apartment with real bedrooms and real furniture. Everything was changing. Everything was finally changing. He walked over to Maddie's corner and looked at the drawing taped above her pillow, the one with the house and the backyard and the 3 figures holding hands. He had told her the 3rd figure was Mommy. But maybe, someday, it could be someone else. Someone real. Someone present. For the first time since Sarah died, Adam allowed himself to imagine a future that wasn't just about survival. A future with possibilities. With hope. With room for happiness. He touched the drawing gently, a silent promise to his daughter and to himself. "We're going to be okay, baby girl," he whispered. "We're going to be more than okay." Outside the window, the city hummed with its usual indifferent energy. Cars passed. Sirens wailed in the distance. Somewhere, people were struggling and fighting and hoping, just like Adam had been struggling and fighting and hoping for years. But tonight, in the small apartment with its leaky roof and its stubborn radiator, Adam Walker felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. Real, genuine, bone-deep peace. The storm wasn't over. There would be challenges ahead, new job pressures, adjustments, unexpected obstacles. Life never stopped throwing curveballs. But for the first time in years, Adam felt ready. Ready to catch whatever came his way and turn it into something good. He had been given a second chance, and he was going to make it count. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of transition and transformation. Adam gave his notice at the construction site, working out his remaining shifts while simultaneously preparing for his new role at Henderson and Associates. Carl threw him a small goodbye party on his last day, pizza and beer in the break area, surrounded by men who had become unexpected friends. "Don't be a stranger, Walker," Carl said, clapping him on the shoulder. "And if that fancy engineering job doesn't work out, you've always got a spot here." "Thanks, Carl, for everything." Even Derek showed up, hanging back awkwardly at the edge of the group until Adam approached him. "Take care of yourself, man." "You too, college boy." Derek grinned, a genuine grin this time, without the usual edge of mockery. "Show them what you're made of." Adam arrived at Henderson and Associates on his first day feeling more nervous than he had in years. The building was just as imposing as he remembered, all glass and steel and confident architecture. But this time, when he walked through the doors, he wasn't a desperate job seeker hoping for a miracle. He was an employee, a senior structural engineer, someone who belonged. Patricia greeted him at the reception desk with a warm smile, a far cry from the frosty reception he'd received on his previous visits. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Walker. Mr. Henderson is expecting you." Henderson's office seemed less intimidating now, though it was still impressive. The older man rose from behind his desk as Adam entered, extending his hand. "Mr. Walker, good to see you again." "Thank you, sir. I'm honored to be here." Honored is a strong word. Let's see if you still feel that way after your first deadline. Henderson's tone was dry, but there was a warmth in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "I want you to know that I don't make hiring decisions lightly. You earned this position. Never forget that." "I won't, sir." "Good. Now let me show you to your office." His office. Adam had an office. A small one, to be sure. Just a desk and a chair and a window that looked out onto a brick wall. But it was his. His name was on the door, his computer was on the desk, his career was starting again. The work was challenging, demanding, exactly what Adam had been craving. Henderson paired him with a team working on a new mixed-use development in the financial district, a complex project involving multiple buildings, underground parking, and innovative environmental features. It was the kind of project Adam had dreamed about back in engineering school, the kind of project that tested every skill he had and pushed him to develop new ones. He threw himself into it with a passion that surprised even him, arriving early, staying late, absorbing everything he could from his more experienced colleagues. Henderson noticed, he noticed everything, and began including Adam in higher-level meetings, seeking his input on design decisions, treating him as a trusted member of the team. And through it all, Adam never forgot what had brought him here. Every morning, on his way to the office, he drove past the construction site where he had spent those months hauling drywall and mixing concrete. He remembered the calluses on his hands, the ache in his muscles, the weight of despair that had pressed down on him every single day. He had climbed out of that darkness, and he was determined to stay out. Sophie called about a month after he started, asking if he was free for that coffee she'd mentioned. They met at the Blue Finch, sitting at the same corner table where she'd first told him about her plan to help him. Sophie looked exactly as Adam remembered, polished, professional, radiating quiet confidence. But there was something different in her eyes now, something warmer. "You look good," she said, studying him across the table. "Rested, healthy, happy." "I feel good. For the first time in years, I actually feel like myself again." "Henderson speaks highly of you. He told me you're one of the most dedicated engineers he's ever hired." Adam laughed. "Henderson said that? Are you sure?" "I'm sure. He also said you're still too humble for your own good, but he's working on that." They talked for over an hour, about work, about Maddie, about the strange twists of fate that had brought them together. Sophie shared stories about her own journey, about the challenges of taking over Brennan Industries after her father's death, about the loneliness that came with success. "People assume that having money makes everything easier," she said, "and in some ways it does. But it also creates distance. Everyone wants something from you. Everyone has an angle. It's hard to know who to trust." "Is that why you were so affected by what I did that day? On the road?" Sophie nodded slowly. "Partly. I've had people help me before, plenty of times, but it's always been transactional. They help me because they want something in return. Access, connections, favors." She paused. "You didn't want anything. You just helped because it was the right thing to do. Because a stranger needed help and you happened to be there. I'm not a saint, Sophie. I was tempted to keep driving. I almost did. But you didn't. That's what matters. Sophie smiled, that warm, genuine smile that had stayed with Adam through all those difficult weeks. You know, that morning changed something for me too. Not just my schedule or my business negotiations, something deeper. What do you mean? I'd been so focused on the company, on proving myself, on being the leader my father wanted me to be. I forgot what actually matters, the human connections, the small kindnesses that make life worth living. She looked at him steadily. You reminded me of that, Adam. You reminded me of who I want to be. Adam didn't know what to say. He hadn't realized that his small act of kindness had rippled outward so far, affecting not just his own life, but Sophie's as well. Thank you for telling me that, he said finally. It means more than you know. And thank you for being someone worth helping. Sophie raised her coffee cup in a mock toast. To second chances. Adam clinked his cup against hers and to second chances. They finished their coffee and walked out into the autumn afternoon, the city bustling around them with its usual indifferent energy. At the corner, Sophie paused. I should get back to the office. Crisis du jour awaits. Of course, thank you for meeting me. Adam? Sophie turned to face him, her expression serious. I know we said we're even, and we are, but I hope this isn't goodbye. I hope we can be, friends. Real friends. Adam smiled. I'd like that very much. Good. Sophie extended her hand and Adam shook it. Take care of yourself, Adam Walker, and take care of that little girl of yours. I will. I promise. She walked away, disappearing into the crowd of pedestrians, and Adam stood there for a moment, watching her go. Then he turned and headed toward his car, ready to pick up Maddie from school and tell her about his day. He had a lot to tell her, about the projects he was working on, about the colleagues he was meeting, about the future that was finally beginning to take shape. But most of all, he wanted to tell her that hope was real, that second chances existed, that sometimes, when you least expected it, the universe rewarded kindness. It wasn't a lesson you could learn from a book. It was something you had to live. And Adam Walker was finally, truly living again. The first paycheck arrived on a Friday afternoon in late October, deposited directly into Adam's bank account with a quiet electronic ping that belied its significance. He was sitting at his desk at Henderson and Associates, reviewing structural calculations for the mixed-use development project, when his phone buzzed with the notification from his banking app. He stared at the number on the screen for a long moment, unable to fully comprehend what he was seeing. After taxes and deductions, his take-home pay for the first 2 weeks was more than he had earned in an entire month of construction work. More than he had earned in 2 months, if he was being honest. The number sat there on his screen, real and tangible and utterly transformative. Adam closed his eyes and took a deep breath, feeling something loosen in his chest that had been tight for so long he had forgotten what it felt like to breathe freely. For years, money had been a source of constant anxiety. Never enough, always running out, every unexpected expense a potential catastrophe. He had learned to live with that anxiety, to function despite it, to push it down into the dark corners of his mind where it couldn't paralyze him completely. But now, looking at that number, he felt the anxiety begin to dissolve. Not completely. Old habits died hard, but enough. Enough to imagine a future that wasn't defined by scarcity. Enough to believe that things really could be different. His first call was to Gloria. Mom, it's Adam. I know it's you. I have caller ID. His mother's voice was gruff, but he could hear the undercurrent of warmth beneath it. What's wrong? Is Maddie okay? Maddie's fine. Everything's fine. He paused, struggling to find the words. I got my first paycheck today. Silence on the other end of the line, then quietly, And it's real, Mom. This is really happening. I'm really doing this. More silence. When Gloria spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion she was clearly trying to suppress. I never doubted you, Adam. Not for a moment. Adam laughed, a wet, slightly hysterical sound. Mom, you doubted me constantly. You told me I was throwing my life away. You said I was too focused on being good instead of being practical.
That's not doubt. That's tough love. There's a difference. Gloria sniffed loudly. I always knew you had it in you. I was just scared. Scared that you'd given up. Scared that I was going to lose you the way we lost Sarah. The mention of his wife's name sent a familiar pang through Adam's heart, but it was softer now, less sharp. I know, Mom, I know. So what are you going to do? With the money, I mean. Please tell me you're not going to blow it all on something stupid. Adam smiled. Actually, I was thinking about looking for a new apartment. Something bigger. Maybe with 2 bedrooms, so Maddie can have her own room. The sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line told him everything he needed to know about how his mother felt about that plan. 2 bedrooms, Gloria repeated slowly. A real apartment. For my granddaughter. For both of us. But yes, mainly for Maddie. Adam Walker. His mother's voice cracked slightly. You're a good man. I don't tell you that often enough, but you are. Your father would be proud. Sarah would be proud. Adam felt tears prick at his eyes. Thanks, Mom. That means everything. Now go find that apartment and call me when you do. I want to see it before you sign anything. Yes, ma'am. He hung up the phone and sat there for a moment, letting the emotions wash over him. Pride, relief, hope, gratitude. All of them swirling together in a complicated cocktail that made him want to laugh and cry at the same time. Then he pulled up a real estate website on his computer and started searching for apartments. The apartment hunt consumed the next several weeks of Adam's life. Every evening after work, he would pick up Maddie from after-school care and drive to another neighborhood, another building, another potential home. They looked at dozens of places, some too expensive, some too run down, some in neighborhoods that didn't feel safe enough for a single father with a young daughter. Maddie, for her part, approached the process with the seriousness of a seasoned real estate investor. This one has a crack in the ceiling, she announced during one viewing, pointing at a thin line running across the plaster above them. That's not good, right, Daddy? That's right, baby. Good eye. And this one smells like old socks, she declared at another apartment, wrinkling her nose dramatically. We can't live somewhere that smells like socks. Agreed, no sock-smelling apartments. By the 3rd week, Adam was starting to lose hope. Everything in their price range seemed to have some fatal flaw. Too small, too far from Maddie's school, too close to a noisy highway. He was beginning to resign himself to staying in their current apartment for a few more months, saving up enough to afford something better, when the real estate agent called with one more option. It just came on the market today, she said. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, in a safe neighborhood about 10 minutes from your daughter's school. The previous tenants just moved out, so it's freshly painted and ready to go. I think you should see it. Adam agreed to meet her the next morning, a Saturday, with Maddie in tow. The building was a modest brick structure on a tree-lined street, neither fancy nor run-down. The kind of solidly middle-class neighborhood where families walked their dogs on weekend mornings and kids played in the small park down the block. Adam felt something stir in his chest as they pulled up, something that felt dangerously like hope. The apartment was on the 3rd floor. When the agent opened the door, Maddie pushed past both adults and ran inside, her sneakers squeaking on the hardwood floors as she explored. Daddy, look at this room. It's so big. Adam followed her into what would be the 2nd bedroom, a bright, airy space with 2 windows that looked out onto the tree-lined street below. Sunlight streamed through the glass, painting golden rectangles on the freshly painted walls. This could be your room, he said quietly. What do you think? Maddie spun around slowly, taking in every detail. Then she looked up at him with those big brown eyes, Sarah's eyes, and said, It's perfect, Daddy. Can we really live here? Adam knelt down so he was at her level. If you want to. If this is the one. It's the one. Maddie nodded firmly. I can feel it. He signed the lease that afternoon. Moving day arrived 3 weeks later on a crisp November morning that smelled like wood smoke and dried leaves. Adam had enlisted Carl and a few of his former construction colleagues to help with the heavy lifting. Not that there was much to lift. Their possessions were meager. The mattress that had served as Adam's bed for years, Maddie's small bed and dresser, a worn couch, a kitchen table with mismatched chairs. Everything they owned fit into a single rental truck with room to spare. But as Adam carried the last box up the stairs and set it down in the living room of their new apartment, he felt richer than he ever had in his life. "Daddy, come look!" Maddie was standing at the window of her new bedroom, pressing her palms against the glass. Adam walked over and stood beside her, following her gaze down to the street below. "See that park?" Maddie pointed to the small green space at the end of the block. "I can see it from my window. And look, there are other kids playing there. Maybe they'll be my friends." "I'm sure they will, baby. You're very good at making friends. And maybe we can get a dog now. A dog could play in that park." Adam laughed. "Let's get settled in first. Then we'll talk about the dog. Promise?" "Promise." That night, after Maddie was asleep in her very own room for the first time in her life, Adam sat on the floor of the living room surrounded by unpacked boxes and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Home. This felt like home. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to Sophie's contact information. His thumb hovered over the call button for a moment, then moved to the message icon instead. "We moved into the new apartment today. Maddie has her own room. She's already planning where her posters are going to go." The response came within minutes. "That's wonderful, Adam. I'm so happy for you both." "Send pictures?" Adam took a few photos, the living room with its boxes, Maddie's room with her bed already set up, the view from the window that his daughter loved so much, and sent them over. "It's not much," he typed. But it's ours. It's perfect. It's a foundation. Everything else can be built on that." Adam smiled at the engineering metaphor. "You sound like Henderson. I'll take that as a compliment." He paused, then typed, "How does it feel? Being on the other side of everything you went through?" It was a profound question, and Adam considered it carefully before responding. "It feels surreal," he wrote finally, "like I'm going to wake up and find out it was all a dream, but also, it feels earned, like I fought for this, like I deserve to be here. You do deserve to be here. Never forget that." "I won't. Thanks to you, thanks to yourself. I just opened a door. You're the one who built the house." Adam smiled at the screen, feeling warmth spread through his chest. "Good night, Sophie. And thank you for everything." "Good night, Adam. Sleep well in your new home." He set down the phone and looked around the apartment, at the boxes waiting to be unpacked, the walls waiting to be decorated, the spaces waiting to be filled with memories. Tomorrow, he would start organizing. Tomorrow, he would begin turning this empty apartment into a real home for him and Maddie. But tonight, he just wanted to sit here and feel grateful. The weeks that followed were a blur of settling in and adjusting to their new life. Adam threw himself into making the apartment feel like home, hanging pictures, assembling furniture, painting Maddie's room the pale purple color she had specifically requested. He bought a real bed for himself with an actual frame and a headboard, and the first night he slept in it, he lay awake for hours just marveling at the simple luxury of a mattress that wasn't on the floor. Work continued to be demanding but fulfilling. The mixed-use development project was entering a critical phase, and Henderson was relying on Adam more and more for key decisions. There were late nights and early mornings, moments of frustration when calculations didn't work out, and moments of triumph when they did. Adam discovered that he had missed this, the intellectual challenge, the creative problem-solving, the satisfaction of seeing his ideas take shape in steel and concrete. Henderson pulled him aside one afternoon in early December, his expression unreadable. "Walker, my office, now." Adam's heart rate spiked as he followed the older man down the hall. Had he done something wrong? Made some error he wasn't aware of? Henderson's tone had been impossible to read, and Adam found himself mentally reviewing every decision he had made over the past week, searching for potential mistakes. Henderson closed the door behind them and gestured to the chair across from his desk. Adam sat, trying to keep his expression neutral despite the anxiety churning in his stomach. "Relax, Walker. You're not in trouble." Adam let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Sorry, sir. Old habits. Understandable?" Henderson settled into his own chair and studied Adam with those sharp, assessing eyes. "I've been watching you these past few months, observing how you work, how you interact with the team, how you handle pressure. And I'm impressed." Henderson's expression softened slightly. a rare occurrence that Adam had learned to recognize as high praise. You've exceeded my expectations, Walker. Your work on the development project has been excellent. Your colleagues respect you, and you've maintained a level of humility and work ethic that I frankly didn't expect from someone with your circumstances. Adam wasn't sure how to respond to that. Thank you, sir. I'm just trying to do my best. I know. That's what impresses me. Henderson paused, seeming to weigh his next words carefully. I want to talk to you about your future at this firm. Adam's heart rate spiked again, but this time for a different reason. My future? The development project is going to wrap up in about 6 months. After that, I have several options for your next assignment. One of them is a major infrastructure project, a new bridge across the river, part of the city's expansion plan. It would be a significant step up in terms of responsibility and visibility. A bridge. Adam felt his breath catch. Bridges had always been his passion, ever since his work on the Riverside project all those years ago. The chance to design another one, to shape the skyline of the city he loved, was more than he had dared to hope for. Sir, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet. I'm not making you any promises. The project is still in the early planning stages, and there are several engineers who would be qualified to lead it. Henderson's gaze was steady. But I want you to know that you're on my radar, that I see potential in you, and that if you continue to perform at this level, there will be opportunities. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. See that you don't. Henderson stood, signaling that the meeting was over. And Walker, take some time off over the holidays. Spend it with your daughter. Work will still be here when you get back. Adam nodded, standing as well. Yes, sir, I will. He walked out of Henderson's office feeling lighter than air, his mind racing with possibilities. A bridge project, leadership opportunities, a future that was bigger and brighter than anything he had imagined during those dark months of hauling drywall and wondering if he would ever climb out of the hole he had fallen into. He couldn't wait to tell Maddie. Christmas that year was unlike any Christmas Adam could remember since Sarah's death. For the first time, they had a real tree, a 6-foot Douglas fir that filled the apartment with the scent of pine needles and made Maddie squeal with delight when they brought it home. They decorated it together, hanging ornaments that Adam had bought at a craft fair, stringing lights that twinkled in the dark when all the other lights were off. There were presents under the tree, real presents, wrapped in colorful paper, not the meager offerings Adam had scraped together in previous years. Gloria came over on Christmas Eve, bringing her famous apple pie and a bottle of wine that she and Adam shared while Maddie played with her new toys in the living room. This is nice, Gloria said quietly, looking around the apartment with something like wonder in her eyes. This is really nice, Adam. It's not much. Stop. Gloria held up a hand. Stop diminishing what you've accomplished. This apartment, this job, this life you're building, it's not much. It's everything. It's exactly what I've been praying for since the day Sarah died. Adam looked at his mother, really looked at her, and saw for the first time how much she had aged over the past few years. The lines on her face were deeper. The gray in her hair was more pronounced. She had been carrying her own burdens all this time, her own fears and worries, and he had been so consumed by his own struggles that he hadn't fully appreciated it. I'm sorry, Mom, he said quietly. For what? For putting you through all of this. For making you worry. For not being stronger. Gloria reached out and took his hand, squeezing it firmly. You were strong, Adam. You were stronger than you know. Losing Sarah, raising Maddie alone, fighting your way back from rock bottom, that takes more strength than most people have in their entire lives. I didn't feel strong. I felt like I was barely holding on. That's what strength is, son. Holding on when everything inside you wants to let go. Gloria's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I'm proud of you. I don't say it enough, but I am. Your father would be proud too. And Sarah, her voice caught. Sarah would be so proud of the father you've become. Adam felt his own eyes fill with tears. Thanks, Mom. That means everything. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Maddie arrange her new stuffed animals in a careful row on the floor. Then Gloria cleared her throat and said, in her usual brisk tone, Now, about this Sophie Brennan woman.
Adam nearly choked on his wine. What about her? Don't play innocent with me. I've heard you mention her name at least a dozen times in the past few months. Who is she really?
She's a friend. Someone who helped me when I needed it most. Uh-huh? Gloria's tone was skeptical. And this friend? Is she single? Mom. What? It's a reasonable question. You're a young man, Adam. You've been alone for 4 years.
It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if you started thinking about companionship. Sophie and I are friends, Adam said firmly. That's all. She's the CEO of a major corporation. She moves in completely different circles than I do, and even if she didn't... He trailed off, struggling to articulate something he hadn't fully examined himself. Even if she didn't, what? I'm not ready, he admitted finally. I'm not sure I'll ever be ready. She was everything to me. I can't imagine replacing her. Gloria was quiet for a moment. No one's asking you to replace her, Adam. Sarah was irreplaceable. But that doesn't mean you have to spend the rest of your life alone, she paused. I think Sarah would want you to be happy, really happy, with someone who loves you and Maddie. Adam didn't respond. The truth was, he had thought about it, late at night, in the quiet moments when Maddie was asleep and he was alone with his thoughts. He had wondered what it would be like to share his life with someone again, to have a partner, to give Maddie a mother figure. But every time he started down that path, he felt Sarah's presence, not as a ghost, but as a memory so vivid and powerful that it made any alternative seem like a betrayal. Maybe someday, he said finally, but not yet. Gloria nodded, seeming to accept this. Just promise me you'll stay open to the possibility. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. I promise, Mom. New Year's Eve brought another surprise, an invitation from Sophie to attend her company's annual gala. The message arrived via text on the morning of December 30th. Henderson and Associates is one of our key partners, and we're hosting our New Year's celebration at the Grand Ballroom downtown. I'd love it if you could come. No pressure, but I think you'd enjoy it. Adam stared at the message for a long moment, his mind racing. A gala, a formal event with wealthy executives and powerful business people, the kind of gathering he had never been invited to in his entire life. He would be completely out of his element, a former construction worker playing dress-up among the elite. But Sophie had invited him personally, and after everything she had done for him, how could he say no? He typed back, I don't have anything to wear to something like that. Her response was immediate. I thought you might say that. There's a package being delivered to your apartment this afternoon. Consider it an early New Year's gift. Adam started to protest, but Sophie cut him off with another message. Don't argue. Just accept it. I'll see you tomorrow night at 8. The package arrived at 3 o'clock. A sleek black garment bag containing a tailored tuxedo that fit Adam as if it had been made specifically for him, which, he realized as he examined the label, it probably had been. The suit was accompanied by a crisp white shirt, a black bow tie, and a pair of patent leather shoes that gleamed under the apartment lights. He tried it all on, standing in front of the bathroom mirror, and barely recognized the man staring back at him. This wasn't the desperate single father who had hauled drywall for $12 an hour. This wasn't the broken widower who had spent years barely surviving. This was someone else entirely, someone who looked like he belonged at galas and formal events, someone who moved through the world with confidence and grace. Daddy? Maddie appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide. You look like a prince. Adam laughed, adjusting his bow tie. I don't know about that, baby, but thank you. Where are you going? To a party, a very fancy party. Can I come? Not this time, sweetheart. But Grandma's going to stay with you, and she said she'd let you stay up until midnight to watch the ball drop on TV. Maddie considered this trade-off carefully. Will there be snacks? Grandma's bringing popcorn and hot chocolate. Okay. Maddie nodded, satisfied. Have fun at your fancy party, Daddy, and don't forget to dance. I'll try, baby. I'll try. The grand ballroom was everything Adam had expected and more. A glittering palace of crystal chandeliers and marble floors filled with men in tuxedos and women in designer gowns, the air thick with expensive perfume and champagne bubbles.
Adam stood at the entrance for a moment, feeling overwhelmed by the sheer opulence of it all. Then Sophie appeared at his side, and everything else faded into the background. She was wearing a deep blue gown that flowed around her like water, her dark hair swept up in an elegant twist, diamonds glittering at her ears and throat. She looked like a movie star, like a vision from another world, and yet when she smiled at him, her eyes were warm and familiar. "You made it," she said, "and you look incredible." "Thanks to you." Adam gestured at his tuxedo. "This is too much, Sophie. I can't accept." "You already accepted. It's done." She took his arm, steering him into the ballroom. "Now stop worrying and try to enjoy yourself. This is supposed to be a celebration." The evening passed in a blur of introductions and conversations. Sophie guided Adam through the crowd, introducing him to executives and investors, board members and politicians. Everyone seemed to know who she was, and by extension, they treated Adam with a deference he found deeply uncomfortable. But Sophie was always there, her hand on his arm, her presence grounding him whenever he started to feel overwhelmed. She had a gift for making people feel at ease, for steering conversations toward topics that included everyone, for ensuring that no one felt left out or ignored. Somewhere around 11 o'clock, they found themselves on the balcony overlooking the city, away from the noise and press of the crowd inside. The air was cold but refreshing, and Adam could see his breath forming small clouds in the darkness. "Thank you for inviting me," he said quietly. "This has been an experience." Sophie laughed. "Good experience or bad experience?" "Good. Definitely good. Just overwhelming. I'm not used to this world." "Neither was I, once." Sophie leaned against the railing, her gaze fixed on the city lights below. "When my father first started bringing me to events like this, I felt like a fraud, like everyone could see through me, could tell that I didn't really belong." "When did that feeling go away?" "It didn't, not entirely." She turned to look at him, her expression thoughtful. "But I learned something important along the way. These people, the executives, the investors, the politicians, they're not better than you or me. They're just people who ended up in certain positions, made certain choices. Some of them are good, some of them are terrible, but none of them are inherently more valuable or more deserving than anyone else." Adam nodded slowly. "I think I'm starting to understand that." "Good. Because you belong here, Adam. Not because of your tuxedo or your job title, but because of who you are. The person who stopped on a lonely road to help a stranger. That person belongs anywhere he wants to be." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the city lights twinkle below. Then Sophie said, almost hesitantly, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you ever think about moving forward? Romantically, I mean. Finding someone new?" Adam felt his heart rate quicken. It was the same question his mother had asked, and he found himself giving the same honest answer. "I think about it sometimes, but I'm not sure I'm ready. Sarah was—" He paused, searching for the right words. "She was my person, you know? The one I thought I'd spend my whole life with. Losing her broke something in me that I'm not sure can be fixed." Sophie nodded slowly. "I understand that. More than you might think." "You've lost someone too?" "My father. 2 years ago." Her voice was quiet, tinged with old grief. "It's not the same as losing a spouse, I know, but it changed me. Made me question everything I thought I knew about myself and my life." "I'm sorry, Sophie, I didn't realize." "How could you? We've barely scratched the surface of each other's stories." She turned to face him fully, her eyes bright in the darkness. "But that's what I like about our friendship, Adam. It feels real, uncomplicated. You don't want anything from me except to be my friend. That's all I've ever wanted. I know, and you have no idea how rare that is." Sophie smiled, a soft, genuine smile that made something warm bloom in Adam's chest. "Whatever happens, I want you to know that I'm grateful. For the morning you stopped on that road, for the person you've turned out to be, for the chance to know you." "I'm grateful too," Adam said. "More than I can say." Inside the ballroom, someone started counting down to midnight. 10, 9, 8. Sophie glanced toward the doors, then back at Adam. "We should go inside. It's almost time." 7, 6, 5.
They moved toward the ballroom, but Sophie paused at the threshold, her hand still on Adam's arm. 4, 3, 2. Happy New Year, Adam Walker, she said softly. 1. The room erupted in cheers and applause as fireworks exploded over the city skyline. Couples embraced. Champagne corks popped. Confetti rained down from the ceiling in a glittering cascade. And in the midst of all that celebration, Adam stood beside Sophie Brennan and felt something he had thought was lost forever begin to stir back to life. Not romance. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But possibility. Hope. The sense that his story wasn't over, that there were chapters yet to be written, adventures yet to be had, connections yet to be made. Happy New Year, Sophie, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you for everything. She squeezed his arm and smiled. This is just the beginning, Adam. The best is yet to come. The drive home that night was quiet and contemplative. Adam's mind was full of images from the gala, the glittering ballroom, the elegant guests, the fireworks over the city. But most of all, he kept thinking about Sophie's words on the balcony. You belong here, not because of your tuxedo or your job title, but because of who you are. Did he believe that? Could he believe that? He pulled into the parking lot of his apartment building and sat there for a moment, looking up at the windows of his unit. The lights were still on. Gloria and Maddie must still be awake, probably watching the New Year's coverage on television. His family, his home, his life. It wasn't perfect. There were still challenges ahead, still obstacles to overcome, still wounds that hadn't fully healed. But it was his. He had built it from the rubble of his despair, one painful day at a time. And that, he realized, was something to be proud of. He got out of the car and walked toward the building, the crisp night air filling his lungs. Above him, the stars glittered coldly in the winter sky, the same stars that had witnessed his darkest moments, his deepest despair, his slow and painful climb back toward the light. He thought about Sarah, about the life they had planned together, about the future that had been stolen from them by a drunk driver on a Tuesday evening 4 years ago. He thought about Maddie, sleeping peacefully in her new room, surrounded by purple walls and stuffed animals, and the promise of a better tomorrow. He thought about Sophie, who had seen something in him worth saving and had given him a second chance when he had lost all hope. And he thought about himself. Adam Walker, widower and father, construction worker and engineer, broken man and survivor. He had been given so many gifts over the past few months. The job, the apartment, the opportunity to rebuild his life. But the greatest gift of all, he realized, was something that couldn't be bought or earned or given by anyone else. The greatest gift was the knowledge that he was enough, that despite his failures and his flaws, despite the years he had spent in the darkness, despite everything he had lost and everything he had feared, he was enough. Doing the right thing mattered, kindness mattered, character mattered, and no matter what the future held, those truths would guide him forward. Adam opened the door to his apartment building and stepped inside, leaving the old year behind and walking toward whatever came next. The best is yet to come. For the first time in a very long time, he actually believed it. Spring arrived in the city like a promise being kept, soft and gradual, the gray winter skies giving way to pale blue expanses dotted with cotton-white clouds. The trees along Adams Street burst into bloom almost overnight, their branches heavy with pink and white blossoms that drifted down like confetti whenever the wind stirred. Maddie called it flower snow, and spent her afternoons collecting the fallen petals in a small bucket, arranging them into patterns on the sidewalk that she photographed with Adam's phone. 6 months had passed since Adam started at Henderson and Associates. 6 months of hard work and late nights, of challenges overcome and skills sharpened, of slowly rebuilding the career he had thought was lost forever. The mixed-use development project was nearing completion, and Henderson had already confirmed what he had hinted at back in December. Adam would be leading the new bridge project, the most significant infrastructure undertaking the city had seen in 2 decades. The news had come on a Tuesday afternoon in late March, delivered in Henderson's characteristically understated fashion. Walker, the bridge project. You're on it. Lead engineer. Don't make me regret this decision. Adam had stood there stunned, unable to form words. Lead engineer on a bridge project.
The kind of opportunity he had dreamed about since his first day in engineering school. The kind of responsibility he had feared he would never be trusted with again. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything. Just do the work." Henderson's expression had softened almost imperceptibly. "You've earned this, Walker. Now prove that I was right to believe in you."
That night, Adam had taken Maddie out for ice cream to celebrate, a special trip to the fancy gelato place downtown that she had been begging to visit for months. They sat at a small table by the window, Maddie's face smeared with chocolate, and Adam told her about the bridge. "It's going to go across the river," he explained, using his hands to illustrate. "So people can drive from one side of the city to the other without having to go all the way around." Maddie considered this information with her usual seriousness. "Will it be a big bridge or a little bridge?" "A big bridge, very big." "Bigger than the one we drive over to get to Grandma's house?" "Much bigger. It's going to be one of the biggest bridges in the whole state." Maddie's eyes widened. "And you're going to build it?" "Well, I'm going to design it. Other people will do the actual building. But yes, it's my project, my responsibility." "Wow," Maddie licked her spoon thoughtfully. "That's really cool, Daddy. Mommy would be proud of you." The words hit Adam like a physical force, stealing his breath and bringing tears to his eyes. He reached across the table and took his daughter's small hand in his. "Yeah, baby, I think she would be." They finished their ice cream in comfortable silence, watching the city move past the window, and Adam allowed himself to feel something he had been afraid to feel for a very long time. Happiness. Real, uncomplicated, unguarded happiness. He had earned this. He had fought for this. And he was finally living the life he had always hoped to give his daughter. The coffee shop meeting with Sophie had become a monthly tradition, a standing appointment on the first Saturday of each month, always at the Blue Finch, always at the corner table where they had first talked about second chances. It was their ritual now, a touchstone that both of them had come to treasure. Sophie arrived at their April meeting looking more relaxed than Adam had ever seen her. She was dressed casually, jeans and a soft sweater instead of her usual business attire, and there was a lightness in her step that he hadn't noticed before. "You look different," Adam said as she slid into the seat across from him. "Good different. I feel different." Sophie wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, a small smile playing at her lips. "I made a decision last week. A big one." "What kind of decision?" "I'm stepping back from the day-to-day operations at Brennan Industries, hiring a COO to handle the things I've been killing myself over for the past 2 years." She paused, gauging his reaction. "I'm going to focus on the parts of the job I actually love, the strategic vision, the community partnerships, the projects that make a real difference. And I'm going to start having an actual life outside of work." Adam raised his eyebrows. "Sophie Brennan, taking time for herself? I never thought I'd see the day." "Neither did I, honestly." She laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that made Adam smile in response. "But something changed. Something shifted in my perspective over the past few months." "What happened?" Sophie was quiet for a moment, her gaze fixed on something in the middle distance. "Do you remember what I told you at the New Year's gala about feeling like a fraud when I first started in this world?" "I remember." "Well, for a long time I tried to overcome that feeling by working harder, by being perfect, by never taking a break, never showing weakness, never letting anyone see that I was struggling." She shook her head slowly. "I thought that if I just pushed hard enough, long enough, the feeling would eventually go away, that I would finally feel like I deserved to be where I was." "Did it work?" "No, it just made me exhausted and lonely." Sophie met his eyes. "But then I met you. This guy on the side of the road who gave up his most important interview to help a stranger, and watching you these past few months, watching you rebuild your life, reconnect with your daughter, find your footing again, it made me realize something." "What?" "That worthiness isn't about what you accomplish. It's about who you are, the choices you make, the kind of person you show up as, day after day." Sophie's voice was soft but steady. "You showed me that, Adam. Without even trying, just by being yourself." Adam didn't know what to say. He had spent so much time thinking about how Sophie had helped him, how she had opened doors, created opportunities, given him a second chance at everything he had lost. He had never considered that the influence might run both ways, that his struggles and triumphs might have meant something to her as well. I don't know if I deserve that much credit, he said finally. You deserve more. Sophie reached across the table and squeezed his hand briefly. You changed my life, Adam Walker, just like I changed yours. That's what kindness does. It ripples outward, touching lives in ways we can't predict or control. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the sounds of the coffee shop washing over them, the hiss of the espresso machine, the murmur of conversations, the soft clink of cups and saucers. Then Sophie said, almost casually, I heard about the bridge project. Congratulations. Thanks. I still can't quite believe it's real. Believe it, Henderson doesn't hand out opportunities like that unless he's absolutely certain the person can handle them. She smiled. He told me you're the best hire he's made in 15 years. He said that? In his own gruff, understated way, yes? Sophie laughed. The man is allergic to direct compliments, but the meaning was clear. Adam shook his head, still struggling to absorb the magnitude of everything that had happened. A year ago, he had been hauling drywall on construction sites, wondering if he would ever work as an engineer again. Now he was leading one of the most significant infrastructure projects in the region, earning the respect of one of the industry's most demanding leaders. It didn't seem possible, and yet here he was. How's Maddie adjusting to everything? Sophie asked. The new apartment, the new routine? She's thriving. She's made friends at school. She loves her room. She's constantly asking when we're getting a dog. Adam smiled, the warmth spreading through his chest the way it always did when he talked about his daughter. She's the happiest I've seen her since before Sarah died. And you? Are you happy? The question caught Adam off guard. He took a moment to actually consider it, not the reflexive, polite answer, but the real one. Yeah, he said finally. I think I am. For the first time in years, I actually feel like myself again, like the person I was always supposed to be. Good. Sophie's smile was genuine and warm. That's all I ever wanted for you, Adam, for you and Maddie both. They finished their coffee and walked out into the spring afternoon, the warm air carrying the scent of blossoms and new growth. At the corner, Sophie paused. I have to head back. Board meeting this afternoon, one of the last ones I'll have to chair before the new COO takes over. She turned to face him. But Adam, thank you for being my friend, for reminding me what really matters. Thank you for everything, Sophie. I wouldn't be here without you. Yes, you would. Maybe not in exactly this way, at exactly this time, but you would have found your way back eventually. I'm certain of it. She reached out and touched his arm. You have a strength in you, Adam, a resilience. It was always there. I just helped you remember it. She walked away, disappearing into the crowd of weekend pedestrians, and Adam stood there for a moment, watching her go. Then he turned and headed toward his car, ready to pick up Maddie from Gloria's house and spend the rest of the afternoon at the park she loved. His life wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. There would always be challenges, setbacks, moments of doubt and fear. But he had learned something precious over the past year, something he would carry with him for the rest of his days. He was strong enough to handle whatever came next, and he didn't have to handle it alone. The bridge project consumed the following months. Adam threw himself into the work with a passion that surprised even him, spending long hours at the office, poring over blueprints and calculations, meeting with contractors and city officials, ensuring that every detail was exactly right. This was his vision, his responsibility, his chance to leave a lasting mark on the city he loved. Henderson checked in regularly, offering guidance and feedback with his characteristic blend of gruffness and insight. The older man had become something of a mentor to Adam, not effusive with praise, but generous with his time and expertise, always pushing Adam to think bigger, work harder, demand more of himself. This bridge is going to outlast both of us, Henderson said one afternoon, reviewing Adam's latest designs. Your grandchildren are going to drive across it someday. Your great-grandchildren. Make sure it's worthy of that legacy. Yes, sir. And don't call me sir. You've earned the right to use my first name. Adam blinked. Okay. Charles. That's better. Henderson's expression softened almost imperceptibly. You've come a long way, Adam. Don't forget that. Don't forget where you started and what you've overcome. I won't. I promise. The groundbreaking ceremony was scheduled for mid-June, a warm Saturday morning that dawned clear and bright. Adam arrived at the construction site early, dressed in his best suit, nervousness churning in his stomach despite all his preparation. This was his moment, the culmination of everything he had worked for, everything he had survived, everything he had fought to achieve. In a few hours, he would stand in front of city officials and media representatives and explain his vision for the bridge that would transform the city's landscape. He would be the face of the project, the voice of authority, the engineer responsible for turning blueprints into reality. He was terrified, but he was also ready. Maddie was there, of course, dressed in a pretty yellow sundress that Gloria had bought for the occasion. She stood beside Adam as the crowd gathered, her small hand clasped in his, her eyes wide with excitement. "This is going to be your bridge, Daddy?" "It's going to be everyone's bridge, baby. But yes, I'm helping to build it." "That's so cool." Maddie squeezed his hand. "I'm going to tell everyone at school that my daddy built a bridge." Adam smiled, feeling some of his nervousness ease. "You do that, sweetheart." Gloria was there too, standing a few feet away with tears glistening in her eyes. She had been emotional all morning, alternating between pride and disbelief that her son, the same boy who had once struggled to pass his high school math classes, was now leading a project of this magnitude. "Your father would have been so proud," she had whispered when she arrived, hugging Adam tightly. "So proud, Adam." And Sophie was there, standing at the edge of the crowd with the other Brennan Industries executives. She caught Adam's eye across the sea of faces and smiled, a small, private smile that said everything words couldn't express. "You did it. You made it. I'm proud of you." Adam smiled back, feeling his heart swell with gratitude. Then he turned to face the podium, ready to address the crowd. The speech he had prepared was straightforward, an overview of the project, an explanation of the engineering challenges, an acknowledgement of the team members who had made it possible. But as he stood there, looking out at the sea of expectant faces, he found himself departing from his prepared remarks. "Before I talk about the technical aspects of this project," he began, his voice steady despite his nervousness, "I want to tell you a story about second chances." He told them about the morning on Old Mill Road, about the woman stranded with a broken-down car, the choice he had made to stop and help, the job interview he had missed as a result. He told them about the months of struggle that followed, the construction work, the despair, the feeling that he had thrown away his last chance at redemption. And he told them about Sophie Brennan, how she had recognized him on the job site, how she had advocated for him to get a second interview, how she had believed in him when he had stopped believing in himself. "I'm standing here today because of a choice I made on a lonely road," Adam said. "A choice that cost me everything in the short term but opened doors I never knew existed. I stopped to help a stranger because it was the right thing to do. And that simple act of kindness, that moment of compassion, changed the trajectory of my entire life." He paused, letting the words sink in. "This bridge is going to connect two parts of our city that have been separated for too long. It's going to create opportunities for communities that have been overlooked and underserved. It's going to be a symbol of what we can accomplish when we work together, when we prioritize connection over division, when we choose to build rather than tear down." Adam looked out at the crowd, at Maddie beaming up at him, at Gloria wiping tears from her cheeks, at Sophie nodding with quiet approval. "But more than that, I hope this bridge will remind people of something important, something I had to learn the hard way." He took a breath. Kindness matters. Compassion matters. The choices we make when no one is watching, when there's nothing to gain and everything to lose, those are the choices that define us. He smiled, feeling the last of his nervousness dissolve. "So here's my challenge to everyone here today. Be the person who stops on the side of the road. Be the person who helps a stranger, even when it costs you something. Be the person who believes in second chances, for yourself and for others, because you never know when that simple act of kindness might change everything." He stepped back from the podium to thunderous applause, his heart pounding, his eyes stinging with unshed tears. Maddie broke free from Gloria's grip and ran toward him, throwing her small arms around his waist. "That was amazing, Daddy. You were amazing." Adam lifted her into his arms and held her close, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. "Thanks, baby. I'm just glad it's over." "I like the part about the stranger on the road. Was that the nice lady who helped us?" Yeah, sweetheart, that was Sophie. Maddie looked over at where Sophie was standing, surrounded by well-wishers and reporters. She seems nice. She is nice. She's one of the best people I've ever met. Is she going to be your girlfriend? Adam laughed, caught off guard by the directness of the question. What? No, we're just friends, baby. Maddie studied his face with an intensity that was slightly unnerving. Okay, she said finally. But I think she likes you. Before Adam could respond, Sophie herself appeared at his side, her eyes bright with emotion. That was beautiful, Adam, truly beautiful. I went off script a little. The best speeches always do. Sophie reached out and squeezed his arm. I'm proud of you, so proud. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Yes, you could have. Maybe not in this exact way, but you would have found your way. Sophie smiled. You have more strength than you know, Adam Walker. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur of handshakes and photographs, congratulations and well wishes. By the time the crowd finally dispersed, Adam was exhausted but exhilarated, his mind still spinning from the magnitude of what had just happened. Gloria approached him as he was gathering his things, her expression uncharacteristically soft. I owe you an apology, son. For what? For all those months of criticizing you, for telling you that you cared more about being good than being practical. Gloria's voice was thick with emotion. I was wrong. Being good led you here. Being good gave you this life. And I'm sorry I ever made you doubt that. Adam pulled his mother into a hug, holding her tightly. You were just trying to protect me, Mom. I know that. I was scared of losing you the way we lost Sarah, scared that you were going to destroy yourself trying to be noble. Gloria pulled back, wiping her eyes. But you proved me wrong. You proved that kindness and practicality aren't opposites, that you can do the right thing and still succeed. It took me a while to figure that out myself. But you did figure it out. That's what matters. Gloria reached up and touched his cheek. I'm proud of you, Adam. More proud than I've ever been of anything in my life. Thanks, Mom. That means everything. Summer stretched into fall, and the bridge project progressed exactly as planned. Adam spent his days coordinating teams, solving problems, and watching his vision slowly take shape in steel and concrete. It was the most fulfilling work he had ever done. Challenging and exhausting, yes, but also deeply satisfying in a way that nothing else had ever been. Maddie started second grade at a new school, a better school, in a better neighborhood with smaller class sizes and more resources. She flourished there, making friends easily, excelling in her classes, coming home every afternoon with stories about what she had learned and done. The worried, uncertain child Adam had raised in their cramped old apartment had transformed into a confident, happy little girl who seemed to find joy in everything. And Adam himself continued to heal. The grief for Sarah never disappeared entirely. He didn't expect it to, but it softened, becoming something he could carry without being crushed by its weight. He could think about her now, without feeling like he was drowning. He could talk about her with Maddie, sharing memories and stories, keeping her mother's spirit alive in their daily lives. He even started dating again, tentatively, cautiously, dipping his toes into the water without diving in head first. Nothing serious yet. Nothing that felt like it might become serious. But the simple fact that he was willing to try felt like a victory in itself. Sophie noticed the change in him during one of their monthly coffee meetings. You seem lighter, she observed. More open. I feel lighter, Adam admitted, like I finally put down a burden I've been carrying for years. Good. You deserve to be happy, Adam, really happy, not just surviving. I'm getting there, slowly but surely. Sophie smiled, that warm, genuine smile that Adam had come to treasure. I'm glad, and I'm glad we've stayed friends through all of this. Me too. Adam hesitated, then added, You know, my mother keeps asking about you. Does she? She thinks you have a crush on me. Sophie laughed. Your mother sounds like a perceptive woman. Adam felt his heart skip. Sophie, relax, Adam. Relax. I'm teasing. But there was something in her eyes, a warmth, a softness, that suggested she might not be entirely joking. I value our friendship too much to complicate it with romance. At least not right now. Not right now? Sophie shrugged, a small smile playing at her lips. Life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it? I've learned not to rule anything out. They finished their coffee and parted ways, but Adam found himself thinking about her words for the rest of the day. Life has a way of surprising us. He had certainly learned that lesson over the past year. Every assumption he had made about his future had been upended, every expectation defied. Maybe Sophie was right. Maybe the best approach was to stay open to possibilities, to let life unfold without trying to control every detail. Maybe the next surprise was just around the corner. The bridge was completed in 18 months, 3 months ahead of schedule and significantly under budget. The opening ceremony was even larger than the groundbreaking had been, with the mayor and city council in attendance, news cameras from every local station, and a crowd of thousands gathered to witness the historic moment. Adam stood at the center of it all, Maddie on one side and Gloria on the other, watching as the first cars drove across the span he had designed. It was surreal, seeing his vision transformed into reality, knowing that this structure would stand for decades, maybe centuries, connecting communities and facilitating movement long after he was gone. "You did it, Daddy," Maddie whispered, squeezing his hand. "You really did it." "We did it," Adam corrected gently, "all of us together." Sophie found him after the ceremony, pulling him aside from the crowd of well-wishers. "Congratulations, Adam. This is a remarkable achievement. Thank you for everything. I wouldn't be here without you." "Stop saying that." Sophie's tone was gentle but firm. "You earned this. Every bit of it. I just gave you a nudge in the right direction." "It was more than a nudge." "Maybe. But you're the one who walked through the door. You're the one who did the work." She paused, her expression growing thoughtful. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "That morning on Old Mill Road, when my car broke down and you stopped to help, I was on my way to a meeting that I thought would determine the future of my company. I was terrified that missing it would ruin everything I'd worked for. I remember you mentioned something about that. What I didn't tell you is that missing that meeting turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me." Sophie smiled. "It forced me to slow down, to reassess my priorities, to realize that I had been running myself into the ground trying to be perfect. The deal I missed that day? It fell apart anyway, for reasons that had nothing to do with my absence. And in the space that opened up, I found room to breathe, to think, to figure out what I actually wanted." Adam stared at her. "You never told me that. I wasn't ready to admit it before. It felt too strange, too coincidental, that the worst day of my life and the best thing that ever happened to me could be the same event." Sophie reached out and took his hand. "But that's what kindness does, Adam. It creates space for good things to grow, even when, especially when, it costs us something." They stood there for a moment, hand in hand, surrounded by the sounds of celebration and the sight of cars streaming across the bridge Adam had built. "I'm glad I stopped," Adam said finally. "I'm glad I made that choice." "So am I." Sophie squeezed his hand. "So am I." Months later, on a quiet Sunday evening in early spring, Adam sat on the couch in his apartment, their apartment, the home he had built for himself and Maddie, watching his daughter play with the golden retriever puppy they had finally adopted. The dog, named Biscuit at Maddie's insistence, was chasing a squeaky toy across the living room floor while Maddie shrieked with delight. The windows were open, letting in the warm evening breeze and the sounds of the neighborhood waking up from winter's long sleep. Outside, children played in the park down the block. Somewhere, a dog barked. The world was alive and vibrant and full of possibility. "Daddy?" Maddie looked up from her play, her face flushed with happiness. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, baby. Anything." "That day you helped the lady on the road, the one who helped us later, why did you stop? You said you were going to be late for something important." Adam set down the book he had been reading and considered the question carefully. It was something he had thought about many times over the past 2 years, the choice that had seemed so costly at the time, but had ultimately led to everything good in his life. "I stopped because it was the right thing to do," he said finally. "But you knew you were going to miss your meeting. You knew it would be bad." "I did, but I also knew that I couldn't drive past someone who needed help, not and still be able to look at myself in the mirror."
Adam paused, searching for the right words. You know how we talk about being kind? About treating other people the way we want to be treated? Maddie nodded. Well, sometimes being kind is easy. It doesn't cost us anything. We hold the door for someone, or we share our toys, or we say something nice to a friend. Those are important, but they're not hard. Adam leaned forward, meeting his daughter's eyes. But sometimes being kind is difficult. Sometimes it means giving up something we want. Sometimes it means making a sacrifice. And those moments, the hard ones, are the moments that really matter. They're the moments that show us who we really are. Maddie was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then she asked, "Were you scared that day?" "Yes. I was scared of what would happen if I was late. Scared of losing the job I needed so badly. Scared of failing you and Grandma." Adam smiled softly. "But I was more scared of becoming the kind of person who drives past someone in trouble. I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want you to have a father who was that person." "I'm glad you stopped, Daddy." "Me too, baby. Me too." Biscuit bounded over and jumped onto the couch, showering both of them with enthusiastic puppy kisses. Maddie laughed, wrapping her arms around the dog's neck, and Adam felt his heart expand with a love so fierce it almost hurt. This was his life now. This apartment filled with laughter and dog toys. This daughter who asked profound questions and accepted his answers with trusting, innocent faith. This career that challenged and fulfilled him. This community of people who cared about him, Gloria, Sophie, Henderson, the colleagues who had become friends. All of it, every single piece, traced back to a choice he had made on a lonely road 2 years ago. A choice to stop. A choice to help. A choice to be the kind of person his wife would have been proud of. Kindness hadn't punished him. It had saved him. Later that night, after Maddie was asleep and Biscuit was snoring at the foot of her bed, Adam stood at the window of his living room looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, the bridge he had designed was carrying cars across the river, connecting communities, facilitating movement and commerce and life. His bridge, his legacy, his contribution to a city that had witnessed both his darkest moments and his greatest triumphs. He thought about Sarah, about the life they had planned together, the future that had been stolen from them. He thought about the years of grief and struggle, the depths he had sunk to, the moments when he had wondered if he would ever climb out of the darkness. And he thought about where he was now, a successful engineer, a devoted father, a man who had rebuilt his life from the rubble of his despair and emerged stronger than he had ever been. The journey had been long, the road had been hard, but he had made it. Against all odds, despite everything that had tried to break him, he had made it. Adam pulled out his phone and scrolled to the photo he kept as his screensaver, the one from the hospital room 4.5 years ago, with Sarah holding newborn Maddie and Adam beaming at the camera with the biggest smile of his life. "I did it, Sarah," he whispered to the image. "I kept my promise. I took care of our girl. I built a good life for her." He could almost hear her voice in response, warm and loving, the way it had always been. "I knew you would. I never doubted you for a moment." Adam smiled, tears streaming down his face. Not tears of grief, but tears of gratitude. Tears of completion. Tears of a man who had finally found peace with his past and hope for his future. "I love you," he whispered. "I'll always love you. But I think I'm ready to be happy again. I think you'd want that for me." The photo didn't answer, of course, but somewhere deep in his heart, Adam felt a sense of release, of permission, of blessing. He set down the phone and looked out at the city one more time. Tomorrow he would go to work and continue building things that mattered. He would pick up Maddie from school and listen to her talk about her day. He would call his mother and check in on Sophie and take Biscuit for a walk in the park. He would live his life, fully, completely, without reservation. Because that was what kindness had given him. Not just a second chance, but a whole new beginning. A future filled with possibility and promise and hope. One simple act of compassion on a lonely road had set in motion a chain of events that transformed everything. It had connected him to Sophie, who had believed in him when he had stopped believing in himself. It had led him back to his career, his calling, his purpose. It had given Maddie a father who was present and engaged, not just surviving, but truly living. And it had taught him the most important lesson of all, that doing the right thing matters, even when it costs you.
especially when it costs you. Adam Walker turned away from the window and walked toward his bedroom, ready for sleep, ready for tomorrow, ready for whatever came next. The darkness was behind him now. The light was ahead. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, he was walking toward it with his head held high and his heart wide open. The best was no longer yet to come. The best was already here.